here we have the Scatter School versus coRe and Elyona. Is that right? Yeah. Oh yeah. It's right. Scatter School versus. I got confused because this is the Group D, and usually like we went A, B, and so forth. So I was confused for a moment, but it is indeed right. It's the Group D deciders. Scatterbrain, Stopper, and Wilcock versus coRe and Elyona and Chuck Francis. We've actually seen Chuck Francis play some games in the qualifiers. I'm not sure how much he's going to play today, though, because I think that day coRe was simply unavailable. Game number 1 coming up is going to be on Dry Arabia. It is going to be Byzantines and HRE versus the French and the Delhi. So right off the get-go, seed number 12 versus seed number 13. I do see, you know, that very classic combination for coRe and Elyona, and something a little bit more unusual on the other side.
Yeah, and that's one where we'll get into these Civ matchups here in just a second. We'll be able to talk through the Dark Age, as I'm already starting to maybe hear a little bit of the sheep behind us. Game is now at 0, and we are jumping into the first game of set number 3 of the day.
Here we go, fellas. Scatterbrained, whose username is so long that it doesn't even fit the overlay, but just ignore that. Scatterbrained and Stopper versus coRe and Elyona. coRe and Elyona with the cold colors, blue and teal, and on the other side, red and orange. How do you feel about these civilizations, though, here, real quick? Because, again, we have that classic combination of French and Delhi versus a much more unusual setup. And speaking of unusual, this is definitely one of those things.
Well, you were asking what I think about these Civs. I actually like both HRE and Biz almost in any combination in team games. They both play that role of I can play feudal, I can play castle, I can play really whatever I want to play. And speaking of whatever I want to play, we do have a good old Dark Age spear rush coming in, which I always think actually works out well when, you know, especially against two civs like this, you just go on over to the French gold that's forward and try to delay or deny that first knight. Even if it's they still get one knight, it's a lot better than having 3, 4, 5 knights constantly in queue for the next couple minutes to worry about.
I feel like one of the things with the Dark Age spear rushes is that you are basically sacrificing yourself as a player to throw off your opponent's better player or potentially both of the players on the opposing team. And essentially, you're just buying time for your teammate to be untouched, to get to the timing that he wants. And I think that's going to be the major takeaway here. Can Scatterbrain do enough damage, enough delay, such that Stopper gets to the point where he wants to be with the Biz?
Yeah, and that kind of alludes, you know, leads me to the next spot where it's like, all right, does that mean the Biz is going to go in for that fast castle cataphract build, really get aggressive here? Speaking of aggressive, the spear starting to do some attacks. Elyona able to get enough to age up, but there will be no knight. There will be no economic upgrade coming on in. And this is kind of the point where you'd expect HRE to cut the spears. You've done your job. You've denied the gold. And you'll continue to burn the mining camp. I could have even seen him do 1 or 2 less spear at this point. You know, 3 spears would have been more than enough. And we see a pressure tower coming in from Elyona. Nice and behind the mining camp. Doesn't want to lose the mining camp. But this is quite a bit of a delay. Pretty good success here from Scatterbrains.
Yeah, this is exactly what you want to do. And again, the value of this Dark Age rush depends on the civilization matchup. In some matchups, you need to throw off both of the opposing players. But especially when your opponent has French, this is exactly what you want to do. Force a tower out, prevent the knight from coming out. Elyona is sitting on basically no gold right now. He might be able to get a knight out immediately upon hitting feudal age, but you see, he's got no food, no gold. This is exactly what you want to do. Delay. And delay that knight timing out there. Now that the tower is up, he is switching to the opposing player. Dome of Faith for coRe. If you can hit that gold mine, you can start potentially harassing that ability to make new scholars. And this is exactly what you want if you're Scatterbrained. And now he's making a mine work, though. Now that I did not expect.
That is something I was not expecting by any means. Spear are over at the gold vein, but this was scouted out the whole way. Elyona did a great job, and obviously they're in party chat talking. They're saying, hey, you know, spear's coming over your way, and coRe did a great job of waiting until they got there, dropped off the last bit of gold, and then went back over to a safe spot. Didn't take any damage, didn't really even take any idle time other than a little bit of walking to a different resource.
And Knight, it looks like Elyona is able to squeeze it in, so his timing wasn't thrown off atrociously bad. But still, he was forced to drop a timer, or a tower, I should say. And that's a very uncomfortable tower if you think about it. Now this other mining camp is getting torched down. coRe isn't going to have a lot of gold to work with. He queued up 2 scholars, so for now he's fine. But remember, when you look at the Delhi, they want those scholars out because they need to expedite the techs for Feudal Age, especially before you start getting sacred sites. You want to have that ability to get the sacred site, and then you want to start moving out with the scholars. If you can slow that down, that's immensely valuable.
Yeah, that you mentioned that tower location. That's definitely one that doesn't feel the greatest. We kind of we make fun of our buddies for that one. That's why I called it the pressure tower. Is it doesn't feel good. It doesn't really accomplish too much. You're kind of on the backside, but you feel like you got to do something.
And this is exactly what you're looking for when you look at the Dark Age Spear Rush. I've seen so many Dark Age Spear Rushes, even in team games, where you do something, you harass the villagers a little, but at the end of the day, you slow yourself down more than you slow down the opponent. Remember, Scatterbrain is just now reaching Feudal Age here, so sure enough, you slow down your opponent, but how does that compare to the delay that you yourself suffer from this early investment?
Yeah, and you can see here that Shopter's just been idled on this gold consistently. His tower's in a little bit better location, but still doesn't really accomplish too much. Get some arrow fire down back on that Knight, and Knight will slowly take some damage over time. Outpost is on the gold of Scatter as well. He has a range and a barracks down, so he's getting ready to start his own bit of production himself.
Knights looking to push in. It's coRe and Elyona are playing the most classic team game setup that's humanly possible. Archers from the Delhi player, Knights from the French player. This is as predictable and as standard as possible. Now, what I do not know is what Stopper is up to. Because right now it looks like it's a kind of semi-fast castle approach, but this is getting ugly. HRE player having to commit to double ranges is never something that you like to see. And at the end of the day, they just don't have any army. Scatter School does. And this is the problem that you're looking at. If this Dark Age Rush doesn't delay this Knight and Archer push enough, you're in a deep trouble. Because Scatterbrained, he just now got up to Feudal Age. And Stopper is still not at the point where he needs to be. I presume he wanted a fast castle here, just looking at the resources. But he's nowhere close to that.
Yeah, denied off of the berries a little bit early, is back over to the food. He has enough gold for the age up now, even with all that idle time, which makes this feel even worse, because I would have expected him to be, you know, a little bit too much food instead, being idle on gold so much, but instead not macroed correctly, delayed up, and should definitely be aging up here at this point. Scatterbrain doing a decent job trying to hold this push, but he's still having to make spears. Meanwhile, coRe, he's laughing at that, only making archers and massing more and more archers, so going to be able to win those trades over the long term when he outmasses and is able to start one-shotting.
And now the Knights just need to focus down those villagers on the gold. You have 5 Knights out now. You can be a little bit more aggressive diving under that DC. If Stopper is really going Castle Age here, which seems to be the case, just looking at his trajectory with the resources, now what you want to do is deny that by denying the gold. It's a little too late now. But there are so many opportunities here for coRe and Elyona. In fact, when it comes to Elyona, he needs that scout nearby. He needs that scout to acquire targets for these Knights.
Somehow Stopper is stealing those berries out and about, far out, sneaking them away. Gold is being idled. He's aging up with the cistern, though, and Keshik's finally come out. I feel like he definitely should have had, you know, 2 sets of Keshik here at this point, and maybe it was just delayed on building the Merc House. Positioning point for the cistern or the first hill is pretty far out as well.
You gotta torch it. If you start torching it now, you're going to prevent the replacement. Stopper cannot get out here. He simply cannot get this up right out here. If
Elyona
starts torching
going.
Yep, it's a cancel. And now it's a Golden Horn Tower. It's a complete replacement. But I feel like you dive this. You dive it with the archers because the damage that you can do is just so good. Remember, the HRE player is playing archers with the Minework Palace. That's not good. So if you can annihilate the Byzantine player here, things will get very ugly for Scatter School.
Yeah, just Nightmass being this built up and alive, there's really nothing to deal with the Knights now. Scatter's not been built, or the Archer Mass from Scatter got killed on out, and so the two Keshiks are the only things that are four now, are the only things that trade decently into the Knights, which you can see are tanking this town center fine, allowing coRe to dive under it with his archers. Every single villain in that wood line needs to run on away. Keshik are gonna fall, and we're seeing Castle Age is nowhere close. Fully idled out Byzantine player.
This is very nasty. Now remember, Stopper also has a bunch of villagers to the north here on the berries, and now HRE archers are making a pivot. Well, whoop-de-doo, I guess. This is actually a nice cleanup here by him. Finds a couple of these archers, but he doesn't really have a good answer to knights right now. We're looking at 8 knights, and he only has 1 spearman. Stopper has taken a big beating. He's going to be up to Castle Age with limited resources available. And he still has that pack of workers to the north that, you know, if it ever gets found out, it's going to be ugly.
Yeah, and Knights are still denying gold over and over and over. Stopper is basically tried to fast castle and just gets up at 10 minutes and 30 seconds. It's so delayed, and he has such little eco behind it. Actually, both him and his teammate are down so many numbers. coRe's now been grabbing sacred sites. He's 2 out of the 3, and this is really when Delhi just goes crazy online. Scholar number up to 8. We're gonna look back. It's gonna be a 15 in a little bit, and he's gonna start trading away the gold to get castle faster because he's gonna have too much gold than he knows what to do with.
That's ugly though. 2 knights going down here, almost a 3rd one as well. Really, I guess the position for Stopper and Scatterbrained is pretty underwhelming right now. It's Cataphracts right now coming out for Stopper. The problem is that you're also not playing to the strength of the HRE here. Archers with the HRE just feel underwhelming. And again, these little pockets of eco could still be found by Elyona. In fact, I'm surprised that Elyona is not adding a new scout here. He's actually losing a lot of opportunities because he doesn't have the vision to boost these knights with.
Also, the Cataphracts are not the same when you don't have gold. And he got forced off of the Cistern of the First Hill, went Goldenhorn Tower, which I think is the better landmark, but he's not playing the way the Goldenhorn plays. He's playing like he's playing the Gold build, and he's not going to have that ability.
And now a push coming in towards Scatterbrained. Stopper is beaten up in terms of eco. He takes time to build up his forces, and now if you can dive this wood line, you can just do so much eco damage that it's almost impossible to come back from. It's already a 12 eco lead at minute 12 for coRe and Elyona. Picking off a couple of these HRE whales would probably put the final nail in the coffin here for Scatterbrained and Stopper. It's looking grim for them. And they're also slow responding to all these knights here because they don't have that highly mobile unit to counter those with.
Yeah, and coRe's at the point too where he can kind of just A-move with that many archers. There's not even enough Cataphracts for the trample to matter. It's 1-2 Cataphracts out right now, and with that archer number, they will end up taking down the Cataphracts enough.
It's 43 archers now for the Delhi player, and coRe is sitting on 1,000 gold. He's sitting on 1,000 gold, 9 scholars. If he gets to Castle Age, he's going to have the upgrades real quick. And again, I feel like the primary target needs to be Scatterbrained now. He is still the more powerful player, I guess, on Scatter School. He's got the HR eco as well, a lot of army too. If you can cut into this eco even more, things will get very ugly. Here is the flank with the Keshik and the single Cataphract. Make it 2 Cataphracts. Well, the numbers are still just looking so much better for coRe and Elyona. Cataphracts trying their way to trample through, but it's just not enough, and there's so much idle time behind this. Villagers aren't falling for Scatterbrained, but he still has a dozen idols.
Yeah, a dozen idled, and you know after the army gets cleaned up, knights are going to start splitting off. Archers are going to keep pushing through. As look at how many knights there are here from Elyona, and they still feel like they're just tanking so much, even with those Castle Age Cataphracts there.
And remember, Stopper has a lot of his villagers out in little pocket ecos. Elyona hasn't been punishing that, but if he ever begins doing that, it's going to get even uglier. Look at this. The knight is roaming the map looking for targets. Same thing here. Scatterbrained and Stopper are spreading out, and that is not being punished currently.
Yeah,
as I'm saying that this knight, I think, is heading towards the corner. This should be a big warning sign for coRe and Elyona that their opponents are spreading out a lot. And even if the villagers fight this knight off, this knight is so heavily beaten up. Now, I think the most important thing is coRe and Elyona know about this little expansion, and not just this one, but now they probably anticipate the opponent spreading out a little more.
Yeah, and it's so easily punished by the French, or they could just keep diving the TCs. They have so many units, they're so far ahead that if they know they just continue to have these pokes and prods and keep their numbers alive and healthy, it'll be this easy win. Deny off the gold. Byzantines can't make those cataphracts anymore. We'll have to, you know, start making horsemen or Gulam with the little bit of gold he may have left.
Again, I feel like coRe and Elyona could have won this game by now if they actually find these little pocket ecos. But now it's Rams coming in for coRe. He's going up with the compound of the defender as well. Will allow him to escalate his eco once he gets to that stage with multiple keeps. And I think they can dive this. They can take out these production buildings. Stopper still has a bunch of villagers on the wood line as well. A lot of juicy targets over here for coRe.
Yeah, it has started to build that cataphract number decently. It's up to 5, but there's just still so many knights here from Elyona. 5 cataphracts feel like nothing to 19, 20 knights.
Yeah. And these are French knights as well. They're better than normal, quote-unquote, normal feudal age knights like the Rus. And when you look at Elyona, he's shifting villagers more towards the gold. He's got 20 villagers on gold now. He's also moving out towards the war. I think he's trying to castle as well. And when that happens, he's going to have 20 plus knights, probably with royal bloodlines.
One archer here. They saw how many vills were here earlier. He says, all right, I'll send an archer over there, see what's going on. Be a little scouting unit there.
Imagine if those knights ever hit one of these little pockets.
Oh my gosh. Even still, the problem with putting that many vills on the berries is like, yeah, they gather the food, great, but then it runs out so fast, and then you have so much idle time trying to go to the next food spot, if there even is a next food spot for you.
coRe and Elyona are actually very cautious with this game. You really feel like they could have won this long ago, but they're playing it safe. I don't blame them. coRe is actually up to castle age. He's got a bunch of gold and food in the bank. He's waiting for the text with 16 scholars. It shouldn't take long. And they're right now waiting for, yeah, look at this. All the text will be in about a minute. But when the Royal Institute hits, I think that's their timer.
Yeah, it's a minute and a half for Royal Bloodlines, and Elyona, you can already see with the resources in the bank. I actually see this, like, so many players not do this, where they'll keep, like, making knights and knights and knights. It's like you actually have to idle for a little bit. Make sure you have enough to immediately click that Royal Bloodlines upgrade. It takes a long time. It's a minute and a half, and you really want to be able to punish with that timing. And so he's going to be able to do exactly that. Pretty sure he just clicked it himself. But idled off of the gold, and a good raid here by...
That's good.
Oh, 2 different good raids here by Stopper.
Yeah, this has been really a lifeline right now, and this is a big difference between the teams. I talked about this. coRe and Elyona didn't utilize those exposed pockets of ecos up until this point, although that's a lot of spearmen. You don't want to fight into that. And frankly, when you look at the overall villager kill count, I think the two teams are now evenly matched. Archers are diving down. These are veterans. This is not a fight that Scatterbrain wants or can take.
Yeah,
still, that's a lot of eco damage done on Elyona. Way too much.
The problem is what's going to happen to their economy after the armies get cleaned. They have nothing to be able to hold this push. Those are Royal Bloodlines knights in a little bit. Even still now, they're just regular knights for the time being, or not regular Castle Age knights for the time being, but should be soon enough. And still has 24 alive and no, you know, no sight of them taking any damage here soon.
Yeah, coRe and Elyona need to win with this army now, though, because Elyona is down to 34 vills. He took a big beating. If this army ever gets cleaned up, then Stopper and Scatterbrain are back at it.
Great micro by coRe to move an archer pack over to the spears. Make sure those spears don't close the gap on the knights. And now the knights should be able to continue to move towards the archers here. Those cataphracts, though, so tanky here.
They are, and I feel like if you're Stopper and Scatterbrain, you're happy about this. Remember, you still have the HRE eco out there. You just cleaned up this whole army, and sure, you still have coRe out there. He's going man-at-arms, but once you start getting up to that cataphract mass with the trample ability, the men-at-arms from coRe will not be enough. And Elyona took a gigantic beating. He is the player who has the lowest vill count by a mile. And you look back at how things transpired in the last few minutes, you really gotta say, Scatter School did such a good job raiding those little pockets of eco, and that has not been the case the other way around.
Yeah, they've really not been punished for all the little pockets that they went out on, and now they're in a point where they find themselves with more villagers. Might not have more military, but they might have more military value with that many cataphracts. It's so hard to deal with cataphracts too if they're splitting off and then you're going to pocket ecos. You can't just send gulams out to deal with cataphracts. They'll just dive right through, trample through under the vills, and then run on away.
Exactly. And most importantly, Elyona still has a bunch of knights, but now cataphracts should be able to deal with that. And coRe's army is slow moving. Stopper can do the same thing that he did to Elyona, run into coRe's economy and start beating it up. Now remember, coRe could still carry this. He is a Delhi player. He had multiple sacred sites for a while. He basically has all Castle Age decks, and he's got village fortresses. He's getting to the stage where he can just get a bunch of keeps down and basically 1v2 this in terms of economy.
And he went castle with that many scholars. I'm sure he's got a good relic count there going for himself, if I had to guess as well. Still seeing a good raid here from the cataphracts. This is what we're talking about. They're just going to hit a few and then just continue to outrun away. And they're tanky enough to take a good bit of damage. They can tank some charges up and be fine.
And now Scatterbrain wants to go to Castle. That's the only missing piece they still have. They are behind in tech. coRe is looking to launch a big assault, though, and this could be concerning. That's a lot of... well, it's mostly crossbows, though. You have a couple of men-at-arms, sure enough, but the majority of this army is actually crossbows, so 36 or so archers plus 20 cataphracts swinging over should be able to clean this, I feel.
And Burgrave Palace finally coming down for Scatter. He needs to do it fast, but another good raid coming here from Stopper.
It's getting worse and worse for coRe and Elyona. Iona's position economically is still bad. He hasn't really been adding a lot of knights. He's at 16 knights, no more in queue. And at the same time, coRe's army, if it's in the enemy base, it's not defending his. If you're Scatterbrain, you just run circles here. You delay this army and let Stopper just butcher all the eco that coRe has.
Yeah, and you can see they're trying to do exactly that for the time being. Villagers still out on pocket ecos for all these players. coRe getting raided as well. Couple Keshik into those farms. I don't think there's enough military. Yeah, it's a lot of archers though. Great micro by Scatterbrain. He's focusing down all the crossbows first, ignoring the gulams, and now the cataphracts are here, gonna be able to clean up the gulams very easily, and the crossbows don't pose any damage with how much they've been thinned out.
This is exactly what they wanted. I love how these archers were essentially sacrificed against the man-at-arms just to pick off the crossbows. Now you clean this whole thing with the cataphracts. As you said, crossbows now gone. And suddenly you're looking at a game where everybody is in Castle Age. In fact, Scatterbrain is not far away from clicking Imperial and just recovering all those lost villagers. The army counts are neck and neck. And Elyona's eco is still a little underwhelming right now. And 21 cataphracts are no joke. I love the walls from coRe, by the way. But at the same time, walls are coming up for Stopper as well. And is that... where did all that food go from Scatterbrain? Oh, he sent it over to Stopper. He's slinging his teammate to Imperial. Now that's intriguing.
Yeah, not what I was expecting, but some good raids finally from Elyona. Roaming with some knights. He's been denying walls and trying to equalize that vill damage that he took, and he slowly has been. He felt like he was down 15 villagers or so. He's dropped a second TC now, and he is French. Those TCs produce a little faster, and he's doing some much better raiding here.
Frankly, I think it would have been better if Scatterbrain goes to Imp instead of Stopper, although it looks like Stopper is just going to use all that food for more cataphracts. I could have seen Scatter going into Imperial and just starting to escalate the eco a lot, but instead they want to pounce on this. coRe is now making a pivot to elephants, but we talked about this so many times today. This map is too open for elephants. You're going to have to play catch-up to all these cataphracts raiding the eco. If coRe finishes the walls, however, things could get changed very quickly.
The problem here is the elephants, they can just go attack the base. If Scatter's just been slinging his teammate, he's not gonna have a ton to defend against elephants, and the Katas will then have to pull back, take the fight. There are 29 cataphracts though. That is enough to end some games if I don't say so myself.
Same time though, Elyona is back in terms of knights. 21 knights with Castle Age versus all these cataphracts. It's a decent match, and remember, I think one concern here is that Elyona is low on food. I think we are reaching the point where he needs to make a farm transition as the French, and that could get very uncomfortable very soon, especially because now his villagers are beaten up once again. Raw Bloodlines is late.
I talked about it so much that he had the resources to do it right when he aged up. He just never clicked it. I cannot believe it.
That's huge. Without Bloodlines, he cannot fight this. And as a consequence, he's got half of his eco idled out.
Cataphracts are behind, but the elephants have come over. coRe's been able to come over. The cataphracts able to take down a few more villagers. Has the knight flank behind. Yep.
You just keep running around until the elephants cannot chase you, right? That's the only thing that you can do. There is reinforcements coming in from Scatterbrained as well. Quite a few crossbows coming over.
Here comes the turn. No elephants there. Great trample.
That's exactly how you want to use it, although he didn't finish off many of the knights.
Yeah, he decided to run away and not finish off the fight, although I felt like he could have.
He should have. Look at all those dead bodies. All of them are cataphracts, not knights.
Doesn't have the gulp ability still.
Well, he went with the Golden Horn Tower.
Yeah, exactly. So those cataphracts really fall off, I feel like, especially once you get this many elephants, this many knights, this many crossbows. Makes it hard to take those head-on engagements. You want to just kind of raid with them. So then, you know, you don't really need 25. You only need 2 to 10 to kind of do the job.
And oh boy, coRe needs this castle up right on the gold mine. Archers aren't really focusing the villagers in time, and the castle is going to go up. Suddenly, you have a massive swing in economies. coRe has been very active raiding with the Ghazi Raiders. He also has multiple keeps now to mass-produce villagers with. And now coRe and Elyona are up by 30 or so eco.
Yeah, Elyona's been on that second town center as French for a good bit too, while taking some damage. Still, those are 2 TC French town centers working very, very hard.
Now it's, I think it's not even coming down to ecos. I think it's going to come down to compositions. Those French knights will be fine dealing with the cataphracts. The problem is that the HRE is not a civilization that's currently being used to its strengths. Crossbows and archers is just not the composition you want from HRE.
Yeah, and still getting some good Ghazi raids, still getting some good idle time all throughout this behind eco. So coRe and Elyona are up 40 eco and still idling more. So the military numbers should start to tilt in their favor more and more. And they have some high res units themselves with elephants.
That's the main problem, I feel like, here for Scatterbrained and Stopper. Now that the map is sectioned off, we're looking at a setup where these elephants will get exponentially better. And let's not forget, coRe has been untouched for the majority of the game, absent of a couple of villagers being picked off on the eco. Now he's getting into Imperial, and he still has 3,000 or 2,500 gold left in the bank, despite going into Imp. Again, he was untouched for so long. Elyona took a big beating. In fact, for some time, this game felt very scary for coRe and Elyona. Elyona losing so many veils and coRe and Elyona being unable to hit those pocket ecos, that just wasn't good. But coRe has done a really good job with these Ghazi Raider raids. Now they've a definitive eco lead. And now, if they can hold this assault off, I think they will be in a really good position just to slowly grind the opponents down.
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be too hard to hold the assault off, considering half of the army is still in the base cleaning up raids that coRe's been doing still. So such a good job by coRe. The cataphracts are having to just run on away. They're running through the eco, and coRe hits Imp with 19 scholars. His Imp is going to pay off so much quicker. Yeah, Swabby, a great job. It's going to take you 10 minutes to catch what coRe's going to have already in villager count.
There's a bigger issue, I feel, with the Swabia. I always like to say that HRE is great when it comes to getting into Imperial. HRE is not great when it comes to being an Imperial. You don't really have any of those extremely powerful late game upgrades or compositions to go with. You don't have this big ball of elephants, for instance. Your knights are not necessarily, well, in fact, they're weaker than the French knights. And that's a big problem here. Once everybody's 200 out of 200 population, the HRE becomes a little underwhelming.
Yeah, and they don't have that relic boom either, you know, to support a lot of those Imperial Age upgrades that you want to get. You have to send the villagers over instead, so you really have to wait for that Swabia buildup. Scatter School's trying to do as much raiding as they possibly can, but even with all the raiding that they've been doing, they're still down 40 vil plus, and coRe and Elyona are slowly going to equalize or build up their military numbers more and more, because it hasn't been military traits, it's been villager traits that they've been killing.
It's just rough now for Scatterbrain and Stopper. If they can get the Biz player into Imperial, it's a different story. But they don't really have a good food eco there. It's 20 villagers on food for Stopper. I don't know how much farming he has, or, well, I guess olive gardens. But at the same time, yeah, it's not an awful lot. It seems like a distant dream to get to Imperial. But without that, I feel like the worst civilization among these four to go into Imperial with is HRE. Especially in a setup like this. I don't see the contribution of that Imperial right now from Scatterbrain, right?
Yeah, and we're also at the point where the knight buildup is kind of sky high here for Elyona, and coRe is max population. He doesn't have much more to do, so what's he gonna do with all those extra resources? It's gonna start being slung to Elyona, who's gonna hit Imp, who's gonna have more knights out on the field. That's usually where the way this ends up going in the team games. You got more than enough bank, coRe. Send 4K gold over to your buddy.
And look at this. These cataphracts are just being ground down right now, and you're going to replace them with drum, it seems. Yep. It's just casually slinging your teammate all the way to Imperial.
Yeah, and this is, you're like, hey, go Imp. You can go ahead and get all the upgrades on your knights too with the extra gold. Like, you're set up and good to go now.
And again, it's just a TBD until these elephants start rolling. Red Palace is now coming up as well. It's actually at a very aggressive spot as well to secure the front of the base. Will get scouted immediately by those cataphracts running by. But at this point, these cataphracts have been just running away for the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, they've just been and slowly been taking damage. They've gotten like you see it here, like 1 or 2 vills as they go, but then you lose cataphracts, and it's not like you're equalizing vil numbers at all, because coRe has 6 town centers, and with all the keeps that he has out, and Elyona has 2 town centers on French, so he's not really feeling the losses as much as other civs would.
Oh, certainly. And remember, he does have chivalry. He's healing these knights back up. At the end of the day, these cataphracts are just going down one by one. The unit retention is also so much better here for Elyona. Now coRe is sitting on 6,000 gold.
Oh my, I mean, again, and there's another 2K to Elyona. I mean, this is the point where you love it, because the French is always that civ that they always love more gold. They got stuff to spend it on. It's usually just more knights. They're just such a gold heavy civ. And so having that teammate that's max pop and sending you gold, this should just catapult them up to a level where there's nothing that Scatter School is going to be able to do as a 2 squad to deal with it on the other side.
And again, when you look at this late game composition for coRe and Elyona, very tanky elephants, great anti-cav, some backline of crossbows and Henkenneers as well, and essentially a huge ball of French knights, one of the best in the game. You compare that with the other side, cataphracts, they're neat. Gulam, not necessarily what you want late game. It's not the tankiest and most population efficient unit out there. Crossbows and archers from HRE is definitely the weakest link in that chain.
And look at those knights. Those things are so tanky now that they are full on upgraded elite royal knights. Got the bloodlines already from earlier. And they're just happy to dive town centers now, happy to dive anything. A culverin's popped out, gonna try to help take down all the elephant mass, but one culverin is not enough to deal with that fast enough. Knight's gonna Wow, quickly close the gap, going for a surround. Got about half the units surrounded, getting a little bit faster. Cataphracts doing the best they can with the trample on through, but those knights just blink and aren't taking any damage. Elephants helping with the support, and coRe and Elyona are going to be wiping the other side. Scatter School is going to struggle here to recover.
Those crossbows had no front line on Scatter School's side. The Cataphracts were just a little too late and they came in from the flank. The crossbows were surrounded by the knights, so they really didn't have that chance to just fire from the backline to slowly grind down the knights. They get killed way too quickly. Now it's an emergency castle coming up, but it's just a slow path towards the death end. Because, as you said, coRe has so much gold income, or had so much gold income and such a huge gold bank, he was able to sling Elyona to a new batch of knights. Even with all these knights gone, Elyona's knight count barely changed. He has a second wave coming up as we speak.
Yeah, and this is usually too where you'll see French drop a market or two in the corner. There's a nice position neutral market and start trade booming too. Actually surprised it didn't happen a little bit earlier, but doesn't even need it with how much resources coRe has been sending him. And elephants now spreading out through the eco, even with emergency repairs. Nothing that HRE can do to hold this. There's too many elephants. They're just gonna swap whatever resource, whatever production building, whatever building they want to focus, and it is all but over.
It's indeed, there we go. Stopper tapping out of this one. A crazy back and forth game. There were moments where it seemed like Elyona and coRe will just let this slip out of their grasp. The game started perfectly for them. There was a Dark Age rush that really threw off their builds a little, but once you get to like mid-feudal age, they had a definitive lead. Next thing you know, they kind of miss out on those opportunities to hit the farmers, farmers, I guess I should say the berry villagers on the flanks, the hunters, the gold miners, all these little pockets of eco that Scatter School had. And then Scatter School comes in, they do a big raid on Elyona, suddenly they have the eco lead. It looked very dicey at that time, and it required all that deli power off the back of the scholars, the village fortresses, so that coRe could come back into this game and kind of get his teammate back as well with all that resource having been slung.
Really, really solid game. There was definitely points where Scatter School looked like they could close it on out. But now we see the matchup, we see the map on Scandinavia. HRE was sniped out, Ayubids was sniped out. So we're gonna have Zushi in Japan versus Abba and Mongols. Probably gonna see some Dark Age spear action potentially here.
Oh wow, we talked about this map, Scandinavia. If you have the fish, you're in a great spot. But at the same time, you need to venture out essentially to mid-map to secure that fish. And that's going to cause problems against the potential Dark Age aggro civilization. Jushi is an interesting one, though. I don't think we've seen it today just yet. It was baked in some maps in the previous series, but it was always taken away. Instead, coRe and Elyona opted to snipe out the Ayubids here. Means that Scatter School has a really nice combo of hybrid map civilizations. Jushi and Japanese are no pushover, but we're ready for game number 2. We'll be heading into Scandinavia. It's a 1-0 lead right now for coRe and Elyona. One of these teams will be done at the end of the day. The other will play a decider. We head to Scandinavia for game number 2.
And here we go, already seeing the villager move on forward for Stopper, who is in the color green playing Japan. Teammate in the color yellow playing Zushi. And we have Elyona and coRe on the other side in pink and purple as Abba and Mongols. Looking like a quicker age up coming in from Elyona as well, not moving out onto the water yet, so potentially just going for that faster feudal, and then wants to drop a dot, contest the fish a little bit, deny the fish on the other side if there is any. As we can see over on the other side, Scatter just opting for some berries. No wood being gathered, which means no dock play.
Yeah, this is, I think, the biggest wild cards when you look at this map. it's not one of those classic hybrid maps where you can drop your dock and get very quick returns from deep water fish. You have to walk a little further away. Your dock is going to be more exposed. The deep fish in general spawns pretty far away from the shoreline. So Dark Age fishing is not as powerful as it is on many of the other hybrid maps.
Yeah, it still can really, really build up. Still something you can't just let happen for free. So if you are going with this fast feudal, you expect these players to do some sort of timing with it, whether it's deny a dock, whether it's drop a dock themselves and have some aggression, or as we see here now, coRe already has a barracks out, already has the first set of spears rallied over to the dock he just scouted out, and should start the torch going.
This is exactly what you are afraid of when you are facing Mongols on this map. It's one thing. The villager is also heavily damaged, by the way. Love the con being used for this. It means that when the spearmen arrive, they can just hit that villager once or twice and it's gonna be gone. Meditation Gardens coming up, and you know, we've seen a lot of crazy Meditation Gardens in some of the other maps. This is definitely one of the more underwhelming ones, so to say. It's not like there are better options, but it's not one of those crazy Meditation Gardens that you often see on these maps.
Oh, the villager gets killed!
Yoink!
Oh, and that is such a feels bad, losing a Vil this early to the Khan. Feels like the Khan of the old days. Remember how much damage that thing used to do? And I mean, now we just see it slowly poking and prodding, and it's just enough to take out a Vil still.
All right. Yeah, I'm curious how aggressive coRe is going to stay here with the Mongols, because he's going to be the last player to feudal. That is a given, I believe. Koka Township now coming up for Stopper. I don't like that. I'm trying to see a way to make this work. But Koka Township is your Shinobi landmark. I don't really see that being beneficial right here. It might help you fight off those initial spearmen, but I feel like it just translates very poorly into mid-late game. And it's not like you're getting a major value out of it, at least not the way I see it. Meanwhile, if you take a look at the coRe storehouse, you could have actually gotten those farms going, which would have been immensely valuable starting mid-feudal.
I think the way that he's looking at it is if he secures the fish, he doesn't need the farms. He's got the fish, and the Koka helps him secure the water and also deny the other side's water. Any dock or anything of the sort can easily be sabotaged very, very quickly if he chooses to, you know, go to the other side, or if he just chooses to go secure his first. So that's mainly the idea. Another dock can, you know, be dropped very quickly once spears get denied, but coRe, spear number up to 6, he wants to go ahead and get that bounty bonus as well. And look at the quick reaction from Scatter on the north.
This is gonna be a big one though. Scatter needs that fish to work with. Or well, I guess eventually it's going to turn into fish, because right now it's just the galley patrolling the shoreline. In the meantime, coRe is actually going for a delayed dock over here, and now Shinobi could become a lot more valuable because you actually have, you know, these old docks to at least block out and prevent combat shifts from being made on them, or even better, just to take them out altogether. At the same time, you're still looking to protect this dock over here if you're Scattered, and Scattered has no idea about this ram coming up.
Nor do they have any idea about the outpost coRe just finished on the gold of Stopper.
This is up. No.
But he's just waiting for the upgrade. So Deerstones is coming in now. And then once the outpost finished, he's going to get the upgrade on through, and we'll have arrow slits in there.
I forgot about the range buff there. That's going to be a big thing indeed. It's chaos all over, I gotta say. We have Shinobis running around, a random ram taking out the dock. I don't know who's leading in this, frankly. It's just so chaotic all around.
Yeah, there's so many pings happening everywhere. Overall, I think the key here is the Stopper versus coRe on this dock. coRe putting a lot of resources into the dock. Another villager going down potentially from the Khan here. Khan's gonna commit, I think.
Yeah,
yep.
you gotta. Shinobi have bonus damage against melee troops, so they actually eviscerate spearmen. But against the Khan, they're not necessarily great, so you can just stay and pick off that Vil. And at the same time, Elyona is now coming up here, picking off some valuable Jugenu in these initial fights. Even just a handful of units being picked off like this is immensely valuable.
And now this means he has fully denied scatter from the water. Ram takes down the dock, and he has the map control as far as the military units go. So isn't allowing any water, anything else. There is still, you know, those 2 galleys on out. So can't
still can't reach the vills.
water himself. Oh my gosh, it's so close.
If it's 1 tile closer, this gold mine is fully denied. Still, the Khan is going to be there to harass, and things are getting dicey here for Scatterbrain and Stopper now. Once you see more archers come out for Elyona, these Shinobi will be pretty obsolete very quickly.
Dock denied, though. Looks like Stopper has been able to take down the Dock of coRe, but his teammate is in some trouble potentially. It's Chooks only, and there's a decent amount of horsemen there as the front line, able to take down those Chooks very quickly because there's not a big mass of them.
Right now, I see 2 separate 1v1s here. It doesn't look like either of the teams are kind of mixing their armies together. And Stopper did a really good job pushing coRe off from the water, but he's just now starting to build up that fishing eco. We haven't seen any fishing eco from him so far. At the same time, Elyona is now beating up Scatterbrained worse and worse, I guess. He's building up that army a lot quicker. Jugenu are slowly coming out, but the gold mine has been taken away from Scatterbrained. You look at Stopper, his gold mine is still being harassed. He had to relocate the gold miners to the shore. I just feel like coRe and Elyona have a lot more confidence in what they're doing right now. It feels like they're a lot more decisive, and they're finding ways to hurt the opponent, whereas I don't see that the other way around right now.
Yeah, a couple spears here now out for Scatterbrain, so gonna be able to at least hold this push. Horsemen feel very, very ineffective once spears come out. It's just so much easier. You just feel like you really can't take a fight if the spears connect to the horseman at all. It's such a quick wipe. Horsemen, though, can hold the Chooks hostage pretty well, make it hard to move out, make it hard to rally reinforcements.
The horseman is a curious choice here because when you see Jushi Jugenu, usually they're accompanied by spearmen, so you cannot really fight into those. But at the same time, again, Shinobi have bonus damage against melee, so at the very least, they do reasonably well against these horsemen. The only thing that you're getting from these is mobility, and that's what Elyona needs to leverage.
And that's exactly what he's leveraging. Runs on over to the side of Stopper instead. Almost gets a couple Vil kills, but good reaction. A couple low health Vils and another dock attempt by Scatterbrain. Elyona has a couple spears there. Scatterbrain says, I'm sticking it. Finishes the dock.
But at what cost?
A Vil for it. But the dock's going to be up now.
Oh, it's getting ugly, though. So many villagers are falling. Sure, the dock is up, but you don't have any fishing boats right now. A lot of villagers are getting idled out here. We've seen raids on the side of Stopper as well. Now the ram is being built. Jugenu might make... Indeed, Elyona is just going to cancel that. Eco counts are still neck and neck, however. I think if you're Stopper, you gotta start changing up your composition. Shinobi will no longer cut it when you have this many troops out there. Horseman is a good choice, though.
Yeah, starting to mass up more horsemen. Horsemen feel a lot better when you have a fishing economy to support it, because they're just so food heavy, and then you're not as worried about running out of the deer, running out of the berries. You're like, oh, I still got deep sea fish. We're pumping.
Still, for the entirety of this game, it was coRe and Elyona being the aggressors. And I think that is the thing that Scatterbrain and Stopper will have to deal with, because if they don't, coRe and Elyona will dictate the tempo of the game, and as things stand, that's going to mean Elyona potentially going into Castle Age.
Yeah, and Elyona getting Castle Age as ABBA is just something that kind of unlocks the key to ABBA. They just have so much stuff come online with the next wing that they get, whichever wing they choose. Ram over here doing its job, taking some damage slowly but surely from those galleys, but will deny the dock by the time the Ram takes enough damage to fall.
And that's what matters here. You can have all the combat ships in the world. It doesn't matter if they don't protect anything. Basically, Elyona just wants to make this a land 1v1, and now, see, structures being cancelled. Those will give bounty to the Mongol player. Villagers getting picked off once again. all that they want to do, that is coRe and Elyona, is make sure that you don't have that fishing eco for Scatterbrained. They weren't able to achieve that for Stopper, though. Stopper does have a decent fishing eco, and if you are Scatter School, that's what you have to leverage.
Yeah, it looks like Scatter, though, at least has a little bit of military mass starting to build up in his base. He's going to need help from his teammate, though, because coRe and Elyona, their armies are both on the side of Scatter. Looks like they're grouping on up together, maybe going for a little bit of timing or just circling, making sure no villagers move out, that eco stays very condensed and not able to get the resources they want, not able to get back onto the water, things like that.
But this is the big change up, and this is why this position was so precarious for Scatterbrained and Stopper. They were on a par with their opponents in terms of economy, in terms of army count even. They didn't suffer from massive damage here. In fact, they're doing some decent raids here. But they haven't really been dictating the tempo of the game, and it's now starting to show. Because Elyona is heading into Castle Age, and when that happens, it suddenly turns things around quite a bit. He's going to have that tech advantage. We're going to see Lancers appearing. And that's where things will get very dicey, I feel, for Stopper and Scatterbrained.
Yeah, good raid by these couple horsemen, able to connect onto a lot of villagers, cause a lot of idle time. Obviously losing the 3 horsemen, but by the end of that, definitely worth it.
It is. Scatterbrained and Stopper now have the worker lead, I guess. Is that a Mangudai I'm seeing?
I think it's a Khan Hunter.
Oh yeah, it's the Khan Hunter. It's the Counter.
Yes. Exactly. A lot of the military, though, starting to be cleaned up. Pretty sure those Vills pulled out their shivs, got a little bit extra damage, tried to do some body blocking, you know, punish the pathing in this game. Double outpost as well, able to defend the other attempted woodline raid, and no Vills going down there. So really good hold there by Stopper and Scatter, and it looks like Scatter might have been able to get back onto the water, and he's looking to start some fishing himself.
And now look at the Castle Age coming in here. Stopper with the floating gate. I feel like, you know, as much as coRe and Elyona have been dictating the tempo of the game, they also lost a lot of troops trying to get these raids going, and it's not like they got an awful lot of it. In fact, they're now down by 5 or 6 eco, which is not too bad when you have absolutely no water control. But now it's going to be a Castle Age as well for Stopper. And the floating gate is where the Japanese really come online. So far, Japanese were like, I'm not going to say a non-factor, but Japanese are not really your powerhouse civilization in Feudal. They will be your powerhouse in Castle.
Oh, good little raid here onto Elyona's Vills. Chook Mass is looking scary. A little bit of reshuffle, able to spread, get a little bit more of a gap. But what was that, 4 or 5 Vills going down? Outpost falling.
That's so much damage done. And this is the difference, I feel. Stopper and Scatterbrained send in a small group of troops. They get a lot of damage done, and then they get cleaned up. And on the other side, we see something similar, but the damage seems like it's a lot less, actually. I don't really recall any instance where coRe and Elyona got like 3, 4, 5 villager kills and a bunch more idle time.
Yeah, able to spot out that Castle Age coming out from coRe. So we have double Castle Age on one side versus one that's still stuck in Feudal, at least for the time being. Scatter's been pumping back up the fishing boat number. That's been his food eco for the time being, so he's going to rely on that for a good little bit.
This is a nice cleanup, though. These horsemen overstayed their welcome here. A second TC expansion is denied of Elyona. He knows that he took a big beating. They know that they don't have the fishing eco. They need a second TC, but that was denied. coRe is up to Castle Age, though. So now the only player left in Feudal is going to be Scatterbrained. But now the Mounted Samurai start coming out, and you don't really have a good answer right now to all these Mounted Samurai. I don't see a single camel from Elyona.
No, there was, I felt like we saw one camel earlier and it got taken out rather quickly. Yeah, he has 2 camel archers out, but the main thing is that mounted samurai number is going to be able to climb super quickly because all that Stopper needs to focus on the land is getting gold. He's got all that fishing to just pump up his food count, pump up those food numbers. 37 on food for him and 26 on the gold. He has 1 onto the wood line, probably just for enough to continue to build houses, make sure he doesn't get pop capped.
And now that fishing eco is slowly snowballing out of control. We have a 20 eco lead now in the favor of a scatter school. And that's going to be put to good use here, because now you have the Yorishiros buffing your mounted samurai production. So you have a great food eco, and you have the means of spending it quickly. That's a deadly combination.
Yep. Horsemen and Lancers running on by that Chook mass, probably going to go for some raiding, which will do some damage considering Scatter has nothing to defend as far as good trading against Cav. But right as they see that army mass, that military has to turn right back around. They have to respect this push. There's so many units, more villagers falling. Great push here by Scatter and Stopper.
This is looking better and better for Scatter School now. They have a 30 eco lead, and they see the two town centers, but they're just simply unfazed. They're willing to trade the archers to the Jugenu, and it forces coRe to also come over. This is everything that coRe and Elyona have. Not the best fight over here for Scatter School, but the coRe ulti is also a little too late. Reinforcements come in from Elyona, though, and this might quickly swing. If this is a cleanup, coRe and Elyona might still have a shot.
Yeah, it was at least good focus at the start on to those camel archers, but Stopper said, nope, mounted samurai are not worth sacrificing for this fight. He's doing some other raiding at other parts of the map, still getting some good eco damage, so that lead is building up to 40 military trades that are somewhat even or not necessarily, you know, super tilted, are still good because of how much eco they have right now. We're seeing more and more damage come in. Mounted Samurai just spreading throughout the map, and he still has a good mass at home to defend on up and build for another push whenever they want.
It's the overall population that's concerning now for coRe and Elyona. They're down massively in eco. We're getting to the stage where the resource income from fishing is so massive that it leads to an exponential escalation of the eco. You basically pull all your villagers off of food, and you just send all of them to, per se, wood, and you make more fishing boats, and it now starts to snowball out of control. Costlage is coming in now for Scatterbrain as well for the Mount Lu Academy. And once that happens, it's even-steven in terms of technologies, but eco is massively in the favor of Scatter School. Army count is still kind of similar-ish, but I feel like the army value is already in the favor of Scatter School as well.
Yeah, Scatterbrain threw away a lot of those chooks right before he goes up to castle. Thought he might make an army swap, but decides to go right back onto the same unit. Another raid coming in from Stopper. Good little raiding party. Again, gets a few more vills here and there. And the key is, you know, how many losses is he taking here? Not too many, and does spot out the 2 TC from coRe here. Villagers just deciding to run, so more and more damage that coRe is going to end up taking on that side.
coRe and Elyona are doing the right thing here. If you cannot match up the fishing eco, you gotta go for multiple DCs. In fact, we have a third down center down for Elyona. The problem is that this is basically a Hail Mary. You're trying to recover the economy and get to the point where everybody is at the eco that they want to be, so they are no longer adding workers. But by the time that happens, Stopper and Scatterbrain will be given a window to just attack you. And if you're a Stopper and Scatterbrain, you see those multiple DCs, you're building up one big ball, and you're just trying to finish the game before that multi-town center build really comes in play.
Yeah, crossbows here, though, and what are the Mounted Samurai going to do? Just turn, run away, make the immobile unit get out of position, and then circle back around for some more raiding. And behind this, Scatter is rebuilding that more immobile army. There's still some regular samurai and some Onas starting to build up too. Probably gonna build for another big push. Watch out for the Wololo. Watch out for the Wololo. Watch out for the
two. He actually got the 2 high HP mounted samurai, by the way, so it's as good as it gets. Some of those mounted samurai were badly beaten up. He actually got the ones that were full HP.
Yeah, and 2 mounted samurai transitioning on over to the other side does not feel good at all. But is it going to be enough here? Chook mass has pushed forward. There's a few spears here as well, and the reinforcements are on the way. Not from Stopper. It's actually just Elyona turning back around that way. A little bit of a disjointed push.
This is still, though, it's causing a lot of damage on Elyona's eco. There's still a 30 eco lead right now in the favor of Scatter School, but more importantly, they have double the army size. That eco lead they had for the majority of the game is turning into army. And look at this Japanese army as well. 17 mounted samurai, 17 onabugeisha, a couple of foot samurai as well. This army is just so well-rounded. And oh no, I think those villagers heading down south from coRe, they're heading straight towards... Okay, that's an army. That makes it a little better. In fact, that could be nasty for Stopper if those gold miners get found.
I think coRe's just trying to retake some water, deny all the fishing. He knows that's where the heart of the eco is for Japan. They have so much fishing. Those fishing boats are super cheap. He's got springboards on the backside to be ready for any sort of, infantry mass that is expected from Japanese, which is exactly what we're going to be seeing here. Sacred site starting to be capped, and the question is when is the push? When do they pull the trigger and go for it? It looks like it might be soon.
Yeah, it's essentially two separate 1v1s right now, which actually hurt quite a bit for Scatter School. There's not enough supporting on either side, I feel. And indeed, it looks like Scatterbrain might stall out. And at the same time, I wonder if coRe also managed to stall out Stopper. It's double the army count right now for Scatter School. They should easily be stomping these fights.
Stopper's just not pushing with his mass, it feels like. He has the numbers, and now he's transitioning on over to all-in Elyona here.
Still, the army count is just too massive. Elyona is committing so much to repair that mangonel, but now with the mounted samurai coming in...
Mangonel's still alive, though. Stopper needs to take the fight. Mounted samurai diving. The army of Elyona, army of coRe being untouched. A lot of crossbows on that backside. Mangonel gets taken out. Villagers start to be taken out. And the Chooks are just moving. And there's still a massive front line from Stopper. There's no military anymore from Elyona. Down at single digits. And coRe is the only army to hold here as more losses are mounting up.
It feels like it might just be over here for coRe and Elyona. Rams are being built right next to their bases, and they just don't have a standing army. Elyona is down to 3 troops. Indeed, Elyona will tap out, and we're going into game number 3 at an even scoreline.
It is 1-1 series, all tied up. Water map goes into the favor of Scatter and Stopper, and now Baldland for game number 3.
I've seen this map played once in the qualifiers. It was madness. This map in general is madness, and honestly, I feel like if you're Scatter School, that's what you like. They went into game number 1 with that Dark Age Spear Rush. This game, it was a more classic water map, although we've seen a lot of chaos at the beginning. But this map, I feel like, actually plays into the hands of Scatter School a little bit more. They are the ones who want to make these games chaotic, and they have the ability to do so on this map.
Yeah, and they have that classic duo. It's not French-English, but it is French-English, essentially. It's JD and English together. They can push very, very scarily together, and they're known... This is kind of that civ that's known for just all-inning and feudal, knights, longbows, and that's all you need.
It certainly is. We're heading into game number 3 here. Baldland is going to be the map of choice here. It's one apiece right now between Scatter School and coRe Elyona. Here we go. Game number 3, Baldland, Jeanne d'Arc and the English versus the Japanese and the Byzantines.
And seeing these spawns, we have coRe and Elyona in the west, coRe in the color orange, Elyona in the color red, Japan and Byzantines versus Scatterbrain and Stopper in the blue duos. We have blue and teal, English and JD.
The previous game was so good from Stopper and Scatterbrain. They didn't do anything crazy, but they played the map as it was meant to be played. Game number 1 was fundamentally different. Things didn't start well for them, but it ended up being a chaotic game, and there were moments. Remember, game number 1, they did a lot of damage to Elyona, and it really was coRe who was untouched and was able to bring it back so that coRe and Elyona could come away with a win. But it's not like coRe and Elyona dominated that game anyways. In fact, there were moments where things got very, very dicey. And so far, I think one of the big difference makers between the teams was the ability to hit the eco. every single raid felt a lot more effective on the side of Scatter School versus coRe and Elyona.
Yeah, and the big thing with this map that is very, very scary when we're talking about these all-ins and we're talking about this pressure and who can deal with it and these pocket ecos is they know that people are going to have to take pocket ecos. There is not a lot of resources near and dear to your base. The wood lines especially, you have those two massive wood lines as you can see in the mini map. Other than that, you have a lot of these smaller pockets, and so any sort of couple longbows circling if they're able to do so, and you didn't respect it with some horsemen early, can do a ton of damage and really cause some delay.
Yeah, I wonder if Scatterbrain and Stopper will just play this like super standard. One thing that's a little concerning with the English on this map is the availability of wood, or lack thereof. This is a map where if you run out of those initial trees, you are just going to have to go mid-map to pick up some more. And if you rely very heavily on wood-heavy longbows, that's a big problem.
Yes, it is. You have to take mid control if you're relying on longbows at all, and then that's an easy spot to focus, and it will be a council hall from Scatter. It will be the School of Cav. It is going to be this feudal age all in, it seems. Grand Winery being dropped by Elyona, and then coRe is dropping the coRe Storehouse. Looks like some sheep being dropped off. Both Scatter and Stopper had a decent amount of some sheep build up. I don't see a lot. Oh, coRe had a little bit of aggressive scout pattern, so he should be bringing his back now with, maybe 6 to 10 or so behind it.
Love the coRe Storehouse on this map, by the way, from coRe. Again, this map is very wood deprived. So the fact that you get a bunch of farms for free, and even just a free trickle of wood, until all these farms are completed, or, well, until you don't chop down that patch of trees, it's immensely valuable. coRe Storehouse is just very, very effective on this map, and I think when it comes to playing situationally for a given map, the effectiveness of this landmark is just amplified on a map like this.
Yeah, I mean, this map you just talked about, any sort of resource saving landmark that can kind of delay you from having to move out into pockets can be very, very crucial here. And the only one we're seeing really is the coRe Storehouse. We will see some olive groves around that winery very quick, which will allow Elyona to stay a lot more condensed. Might not have to, move on to the deer. Might allow that to be taken by his teammate if coRe desires, although he likes some berries as well.
It's going to be a classic longbow opening here from Scatterbrain, and I wonder if we're just going to see players playing very aggressively and say, okay, we're just going to enter a slugfest here right from the get-go and try to just essentially play wood denial in a way, especially if you're Scatterbrained. You play aggressive and you say, okay, I need the wood, so I'm just going to secure the map and then expand towards it.
Oh, I knew the boar pull was going to be happening. Longbow takes a little bit of damage, but so does the scout. Scout's just slowly trying to add up as much damage as possible. Might not seem like much, but that longbow's moving across the map now at about half health already. And still just running and moving, taking the little bit of hits. The knight's trying, I feel like almost trying to stay out of the vision, but is clearly gonna be visible. Double outpost drop from coRe. He clearly wants to go with the fast castle, wants to have a little bit of defense from his teammate who already has a barracks, already has some spears coming. Ooh.
Oh, nice little flank. Beautiful flank there. One villager getting picked off. And Knight is going to get away here in all certainty. I love how the scouts are just beating up these longbows. They're trying to get any damage done to them.
That one longbow is almost he's under a quarter health, I think. Upgrade coming through in the outpost, and I feel like this is one of those things. Once the upgrade comes through, it's like, all right, well, do we need a ram? Do we need enough knights to dive this? What's our game plan here, and how are we going to deny this gold from Japan? Because coRe is slowly getting up to the point he wants. Good circle around by the knight again. No kill.
Oh,
The knight falls, takes damage from the outpost as well as the TC. coRe jumped on inside with a good amount of his villagers on the sheep.
Knights still coming in here. So far, we actually see the direct opposite of what we had in the previous game. Previous game, it was coRe and Elyona setting the tempo of the game, just coming in with small groups of units doing some harassment. Now it's Stopper and Scatterbrain, because it looks like coRe just wants to go into Castle Age. And one thing that you get on this map with this is you're close to your teammate. Your teammate is able to help you out a lot more, and Elyona going with the Javelin Throwers and Limitani, he's got a response to everything that the opponents have. But this ram is right now hidden. They don't know it's coming. It's deliberately placed behind this wood line, as I'm saying that the scout comes in from Elyona, but I love the placement here for Scatterbrain. He knows fully well that if the forest is there, you're just going to block the vision from the opponent and they won't know about the ram for quite some time. coRe wants to go to castle. I don't know if he's going to be allowed to do so, though.
Yeah, the big problem, though, for Stopper and Scatter is that JD can't really move up too well with Javelin Throwers. She can die very, very easily. You can just see her using that first ability point. Spears trying to get sniped down. Javelins are really the key here. If they get focused, if they get sniped out, it really will allow Stopper and Scatter to do what they please. Longbows focusing everything they can. First ram about to fall. And it falls,
Nice
goes
snipes.
down.
JD's doing a really good job from the back line with the archer variant. She's been really good when it comes to sniping down those fleeing units. coRe finds a way up to Castle Age with a floating gate, but here's the problem. He's out of gold. So this could be one of those instances where you get into Castle Age, but you simply don't have any resources to spend. And if you are playing this Japanese, you want to play Mounted Samurai, you will need a lot of gold for that. And yeah, coRe, it looks like he might just be migrating towards a teammate's gold mine here.
That's exactly what he had to do. Sends 8 villagers over to Elyona's gold. I think it might have even been scouted out by Scatter. I know he had a scout up in that northern side. They choose to go ahead and dive the outpost that's left alone. They don't even need a second ram. They can leave that low health ram, send it on its way if they want. And JD should get a little bit of extra XP from... Nope, I guess they're not going to... waiting on the ram.
Now, here's the problem for coRe. Let's say you make it up to Castle Age. He's going to have just enough gold for a Mounted Samurai. But again, you are essentially gambling on the Yorishiro buffing your production to get those knights out. If you don't have a large supply of gold, that Yorishiro isn't going to have as big of an effect. And now you have to consider the fact that the Rams are going to start knocking down houses, so coRe could get housed as well. So the combination of this is starting to get a little dicey for coRe here. I don't think he's going to get as much out of this Castle Age as he hopes for.
I'm definitely concerned for him. He has 0 on the wood line, and you talked about him getting housed. I'm not sure if he is housed yet, but if this houses him, he needs to move on to wood. He already moved on over to it, but the timing is the key here. First Mounted Samurai comes out, and he does get housed. There's 2 Mounted Samurai alive now, though.
And now you're looking at a setup where they're trying to push this other gold mine. Farms being taken out here. I don't like this, though, for Scatterbrain. He's going to lose a ram on a wood-deprived map to just 2 Mounted Samurai. They tried to pivot into Elyona's base, realizing that that's where the gold miners are from the other player. But they just simply couldn't go because Elyona's got the Javelin Throwers and the Limitani. And this is buying extremely valuable moments for coRe.
Yeah, and just as that Mounted Samurai number starts to climb, if it can climb once he builds houses, there we go, we see the first one pop up as another house finishes, then it really becomes scary because now the Mounted Samurai are just so much more effective fighting into the Knights if the number can get close to equalizing.
It still comes down to what coRe can do with all these Mounted Samurai, because let's not forget, you're up against 13 Knights. And as long as, you know, you have all these Limitani and Javelin Throwers, you cannot fight into this if you're Scatterbrain and Stopper. But it's not like Elyona can really move out of his base right now. The moment he does, the Knights will swing around and hit the villagers.
And a great raid there by Stopper, circling on around just like you said, connects, and doesn't even take too much damage on the low health Knights for it. Getting chased on down, but Elyona dropping down to 34 vills.
coRe is sending over the mounted samurai. They know that they need to do eco damage. So this is where, if you're stopper, you start essentially shadowing those with your own knights, or just hit the berries once again. This is what they gotta do. Elyona cannot leave his base, and he has a slow-moving army. That is what you gotta leverage if you're stopper and scatterbrained. And as I'm saying that, scatterbrained is thinking about Castle Age. Do you consider White Tower here and just trying to double down on maybe Knights production?
Mounted Samurai are here trying to dive onto the gold. There's a few knights here to defend, and enough to kind of deter coRe away from going onto a dive and getting any eco damage. It's a King's Palace, not a White Tower. So going with that longer term eco play, even though their ecos are ahead already with the damage they've been doing.
I like this. I don't know if he gets immediate benefit from White Tower, although I wouldn't be surprised at anything at this point. But at the same time, they've, as you said, they have been doing a lot of damage on the eco. Bit of a jinx from me. Knights are getting butchered now by the Limitani, but there is another pack of knights on the backside hunt. These knights from Stopper have been really active when it comes to hitting the eco. And it's not just the kills. It's also the idle time.
Longbows went back on those berries again too. 5, 6, coRe's down to 31 eco right now. Huge raid. You can see that the I think, was that a I wasn't a knight, that was a
it's a new Bannerman. And a Bannerman being lost is just so painful here as well. The Bannerman goes down. Even if you clean this up now, Scatterbrained is making a pivot into into crossbows, I should say. And that's going to limit coRe's ability to raid with these mounted samurai. Even just a handful of crossbows back at home will be able to pick apart most of the mounted samurai. Army count, as it's highlighted to us by our observer Vodka, is still in the favor of coRe and Elyona, though. If Elyona decides to go, he's gonna have a pretty good army, though. Although it's only 11 javelins. I don't know how to feel about it. If he had a couple more javelins, this would be a reasonably scary army, but most of it is just Limitani.
I mean, if that's leading with a massive mounted samurai, what is there to defend it? There's 12 knights, and the crossbow number is not built up high enough yet, although Scatter is doing the best he can.
Nice body blocks by the Veils.
And that... Oh, yep. Town Center barely finishing it on off.
I feel like coRe and Elyona know that they gotta go now. Because they might even... I don't know if they saw the landmark from Scatterbrain, but even if they don't, they should anticipate that it could be an extra TC. They know they are behind an eco. They just have to roll the dice, and they have to do a counterattack here. If they don't, it might just be game over, but the crossbows are doing so much against these expensive mounted samurai.
Yeah, sniped out a few of them already. The knights are just trying to create enough space for the crossbows to not have to, you know, take the fight head on. Let the crossbows keep kiting. Let the knights be the front line, but don't run into a brace. JD very, very close to falling, but doesn't quite go to her death. And oh no.
This is the Achilles heel, I feel like, for Stopper and Scatterbrain. We've seen that in game number 1. They are spreading out. Oh, and they got found. There's no way of leaving.
Oh, no!
Oh, man. And we talked about this in game number 1. In game number 1, this wasn't punished. They got away with it. That's not the case now.
And there's 15 or so villagers that all just get thrown away. That being said,
look at Stopper's gold.
Oh, no.
He's out of gold. He's out of gold. He's got 10 villagers on food. In fact, coRe, the player who got such a big beating, is at 38 eco. Stopper is at 35.
Yeah, and this is what he had to go out for, was that gold. He ran out of gold at home and didn't have anywhere else to go. This is Baldlands. All your gold, everything is forward. You had to secure forward, and he did not have it secured.
Oh boy. I feel like coRe and Elyona might have weathered the storm, and we're seeing a very similar game to game number 1 here. It looked grim for them for a while, and then next thing you know, they find opportunities to turn it around, and their macro game is kind of carrying them to Castle Age now. If you're Elyona, they are slowly securing map control, and one thing I learned about this map is that it's one thing to have map control. It's more about having map control at the right time. and that is when these wood lines start running low. We are reaching the point where map control will become immensely valuable, because now will be the time you expend towards these new wood lines.
Yeah, and at this point, coRe should have been able to secure a good amount of the relics. We can still see that now. The only few relics on the map are the very, very far ones. So I believe he's probably at 4 or so in his base. Might have even given one on over to Elyona at this point.
And once Castle Age hits, it's a different story. Because now Stapper is still in Feudal Age with absolutely no opportunities to go Castle. His eco is kind of weak. He's just now getting back to that knight production. And you have a bunch of Limitani here, which in Shield Wall will be reasonable against this. I wonder if Elyona should just switch into archers here, or... It's a difficult thing, because archers are wood heavy, and that's a problem on this map. At the same time, full Limitani might not work against that many crossbows.
Yep. coRe and Elyona having to move out for the gold now as well. Scatter trying to get an outpost up. Javelin throwers happy to start taking down some villagers. Happy to force JD back as well. And a mounted samurai still in the base. Not easy to take those out. Oh, it's not just one in the base. It's about to be a bigger mass circling back around.
That's... You have 15 mounted samurai right now for coRe, and now he's splitting off some of them. He's trying to find villagers here, but frankly, there aren't very many left here for Stapper, but Scatterbrained is just not getting to this wood line. And I think this is something that coRe does really well right now. He's looking for the wood lines, because you have so few wood lines that you're almost certainly going to bump into villagers if you just probe those.
Yep, and he's just circling out and about. Meanwhile, Elyona is that mass in the center, being that just brick wall that they don't want to run through. Whoa, going in on the gold fields! Oh!
That's still value. That's -5.
Yep. It is not the +5, though. Deleted them just in time, I believe. Javelin throwers firing down onto the crossbows. Knights can't take the fight. There's too many Limitani here. And even still, the mounted samurai circle around. This is the fight that coRe and Elyona want, and they're forcing the fight. Scatter School have to take this fight. Units are too slow to run on away from those mounted samurai, and there's still a raid onto the gold, a raid onto the backside. Look at the double box. It is gonna be all over.
That's gotta be it. The army is getting cleaned, but even if that wasn't the case, the villagers are getting cleared. It's a 40 eco lead in a blink of an eye here for coRe and Elyona. And on the other side, you see that there's just no front line here against Shield Wall Limitani. The knights cannot fight against spearmen, and the crossbows don't do very much against all these Shield Wall spearmen, essentially. They cannot stand and fight, but they also cannot run anymore. Population is just looking so much better for coRe and Elyona. It looked grim at the beginning, but they are turning this game around very quickly, and they should be extremely close to game number 3 victory here.
Yeah, they're about to be taking the lead up 2-1, doubling the military count, almost doubling the eco numbers, and it's going to be hard to see a way back in it for Scatter School.
I don't think there is a way. The problem is that Stapper is still in Feudal Age. They have 63 villagers combined. Elyona has 58 alone. coRe has 51 alone. And when it comes to the army, it's a triple advantage as well. I just don't know where they can go.
It doesn't look like anywhere, as they are not long for this world, about to be going on in, and it looks like we might be going to a game number 4, but there's still another game after this. It is a best of 5. It will just be 2-1, and they're still stalling. They're doing everything they can, but I don't... Oh, that's got to be the end of it there. The Knights get circled.
That's gotta be it. Every single knight falls. The sacred sites are now under the control of coRe and Elyona. Buildings are being torched down left and right, and indeed, Scatter School taps out, and it is coRe and Elyona moving on to match point.
That's a round from Elyona there at the end. Just kind of put the nail in the coffin. It was just a great finish to that game that did look scary for them for a while. They were down in eco, they were down in military, but able to circle it back, and it didn't even look like they ever were down at all at the end of that game, as it was very, very crazy. But now, a typical Civ match, a Civ duo we've seen today a few times. We're seeing Rus and French together, and we're seeing the double Chinese.
Now that's awkward for coRe and Elyona. Kerlogar is the map coming up, and so far on open land maps where you don't have a lot of fishing going on, coRe and Elyona were the better team. But this is a highly unusual combination of civilizations, and I don't know what to expect from this. It could just be all in Jugenu. This could just be some absolute craziness. Who knows? Because on the other side, you have two night civilizations as well. I don't know what to expect. Let's just head into the game and see what these players have come up with. coRe and Elyona at match point against Scatter School here at Kerlogar.
Game on the line. It's win or go home for Scatter School. They are in this southwestern side in the lemon lime colors, playing French and Rus. In the northeastern side, it's Elyona and coRe playing the Chinese and the Chinese variant Sushi. We're seeing water being taken already by coRe, dropping that dock out early. Looks like Elyona moving out that way as well. Stopper has dropped his dock already, about to finish on up. And the only person not moving out for water is going to be Scatter on the Rus.
Now, I kind of touched on this at the beginning of the day. When you look at the draft format for this event, every single game you go into that game with 3 civilizations that you pick, and then one of those civilizations is taken away by the opponent, leaving you with just 2 to play. And one of the talking points regarding this is that you gotta pick civilizations such that any combination of 2 civilizations is reasonable, because you don't know what's gonna be taken away. And because of this, I don't know if this is a side product, or are we just seeing some unique and intriguing strategies being experimented with here? But we have 2 combinations that are extremely unusual here. Maybe French and Rus, you could argue that this is your knight and horse archer combo. But Chinese and Jushi, I don't even know if I've ever seen that combination being utilized in any team event, frankly.
I mean, the one thing I will say about them is at least they can do different builds. They aren't those civs that are like, we have to go fast castle and that's our only build, like some civs we know. They're able to play it out feudal. They're able to take water, compete on the water, do dark age spears, go fast castle, go 2T. So they have that variability to play different routes in different ways. But usually you kind of still will see a lot of infantry and not as much of that cav that you'll see like the other side's going to have. Scouts being super annoying on the villager on those fishing boats. And scouts there to defend it as well. But that means that's a lot of vision and information being taken from one side, because Scatter is able to make those extra scouts from his hunting cabins. Meanwhile, the other side isn't on extra scouts.
Yeah, I'm still puzzled by this choice here, especially from coRe and Elyona. Because so far we're seeing a reasonably standard setup over here from Scatterbrain and Stopper. Love the use of the Rus scouts just to try and get some torching power going. You combine those 3 scouts with the one that Stopper has, you actually have a decent amount of damage output against buildings.
Yeah, buildings and fishing boats as well, as you can kind of see here. Sometimes they will have their torches, and sometimes they'll be shooting those fishing boats. Depends on what they want to focus down on first. But this is where Elyona and coRe both focusing on a little bit of fishing, a little bit of some delayed feudal ages for them, but it won't be anything crazy. And they'll be able to obviously build and catch up very quick with the civilizations they have. Looks like Golden Gate and School of Cav And usually when we're seeing Golden Gate, it is some type of faster castle play. So let's see if Scatterbrain will kind of play into that same thing we've been seeing, or will he lean into some feudal age gaming? You know, the OG Golden Gate build, go take, you know, the boar, maybe not need to take the boar at this point, but the triple archery range, quad archery range play, and just all out mass.
Meditation Gardens coming up. Let's take a look at that first, because we actually have double forward landmarks here now. That's an interesting meditation garden if I've ever seen one. If you want to play 2 TCs, this is the one that you're asking for.
2 TCs, free docking placements. I mean, whatever you really want. Like, that is a nice spot. And you know it's going to be safe and secure with your good old buddy Elyona dropping a Barbican. Scouts, though, for Scat are proven to be that annoyance, that pain in the side that you don't always expect. Did that dock just fall? The dock fell.
That's a problem. That renders those fishing boats very much useless, although I don't think they would survive very long against those knights coming up anyways. Scatterbrain is trying to go Escalation, by the way. And one thing to highlight is that Elyona and coRe are not contesting that by any means. In fact, I mean, Scatterbrain will click up a couple of seconds after their opponents have reached feudal age. So this was very much part of the plan here, I feel, for coRe and Elyona. They knew fully well that the Roost player is going to beat them to castle. So the question becomes, how do you deal with that initial influx of horse archers?
Yeah, the nice part is the Barbican will provide them a good amount of vision, provide those, you know, hand cannon shots occasionally, and make it hard for, as we're seeing already, units to mass up between the bases. That's always the spot you're trying to focus in team games. And then we're already starting to see spears. It's going to, again, make it easier to corral these knights, harder for them to circle and free roam wherever they want. coRe needs to watch out, has that outpost, though. There is one villager left outside, but Stopper doesn't want to lose the knight, although that thing's been taking a lot of damage.
It's only just a handful of spearmen from Elyona. That's a direct response to the knights. Things get a lot dicier when you start seeing those horse archers come in. And because of that water on the sides, it's difficult to wall your flanks. As Hydrate House is going to be the landmark of choice. No surprise there from Scatterbrain. That knight barely getting away. coRe is trying to go to Costlage here. I just don't know what for. Like, what's the plan here? Is he just gonna play like Lancer? Maybe Palace Guard?
I mean, Lancer, grab up the relics and mass up more and more Lancers. You're going to be able to trade better against the French Knights on the other side, unless, you know, French ages up. And the Horse Archer play, you know, might get put on the back foot a little bit. You really can't trade that well until you get a good Horse Archer mass. And it is the monastery play, yep.
It's the Shaolin Monastery. And you gotta credit coRe here, because he's essentially matching the Costlage timing of Scatterbrain here. It's not like, by the time Horse Archers start coming out, you're going to have potentially Lancers out for coRe as well. And the thing with Horse Archers is that they scale exponentially. Early on, they're actually pretty weak, because you gotta stop, you gotta shoot, and then it's not like they have an insane amount of armor-piercing power. So initially, the Lancers will be more than enough to repel them. It's just a matter of, can coRe force fights before that, you know, small group of Horse Archers becomes a large group?
Yeah, and that Horse Archer number, there were 2 in queue, now we're seeing 4 in queue. So trying to build that up mass fast as possible. But coRe, he's focusing on grabbing the relics as well as building his military mass. As those monks, they can battle on later, but he also has Lancers in queue to start roaming, start doing some raiding, start taking down some vills.
Both teams are now investing into ships, by the way. At least on the northern side. Elyona is getting a war chunk going alongside the junk he already has. And on the other side, we have a whole queued up as well for Stopper. I wonder when we get to the point where people start adding demos and trying to sync that whole group of knights.
That's one of those that you usually will see if the knights are burning the dock. It's like, all right, queue up a demo. Let's try to just, you know, have this surprise timing, play this safe, move out with the horse archers, circle right back in and try to snipe it down. But the spears are there. You're going to have to circle around. Might just choose to take the best trades possible against the spears. And there's the raids we're talking about. 2 Lancers versus 1 Knight.
This is exactly what you're going to do if you're coRe. That's also Feudal Age Knight against Castle Age Lancers. And one way to deal with the Horse Archers is just to force them to chase you. Horse Archers don't like chasing stuff, and there's, I think, a big difference between Horse Archers and Knights in a way that Horse Archers need to be in groups to do any kind of significant damage.
Oh!
Nope.
Oh my gosh. Just a step ahead to get out of that. But another good little raid from coRe. He's constantly been, we've seen this in the previous games too. He's been so good at just connecting with 1, 2, 3, 4 vills here and there.
So again, when you look at coRe and Elyona, one thing to highlight is that the knights that they are using, they can work in small groups, or essentially individually, and that's exactly what coRe is doing. At the same time, Scatterbrained has to keep all of these Horse Archers together, so it makes it a little bit more difficult to chase down these individual Lancers that are roaming his base.
Exactly. Lancer's still circling around, roaming, and finds the low health villager, closes it off, takes a few hits from the other knight, and gets... Oh! It was mid-swing and fell. Did not connect on the last villager.
Lancer count slowly building up here for coRe. He's at 6 against 11 knights from Stopper, but Scatterbrained is getting to 12 Horse Archers. Relics have slowly been picked up, and now ships also start rolling. I feel like the army buildup is a little bit more rapid here from Scatter School.
Yeah, they definitely just started pumping those Horse Archer numbers very, very quick, and that number's already up at 12, whereas coRe, his units he's been on are a little bit more resource heavy, and he's been trying to grab the relics, being a little bit more, you know, eco-focused as well. Knights trying to find damage. Outpost still there. Spears there. And Stopper not able to find any connection. Losing some units. But able to save some vills at home too.
I think now the problem for coRe is that he's not really doing a lot of eco damage. He's finding a villager here and there, but trading a knight or two for a villager or two is generally not a good practice. This is a good raid, but as you can see, he needs to group up his knights to make anything happen. Individual knights simply no longer work, and even then, you could argue that losing 5 knights over here for 2 or 3 villagers is not a good trade.
Yeah, it needs to run on out of there. Horse Archer number is starting to climb up. Another Shaolin monk gets taken out, and the eco lead is only at 6. Meanwhile, Scatter and Stopper having a pretty good military mass built up.
I love this pro scouts coming in here from Scatterbrained, yoinking all the deer. It's going to provide a lot of extra food for them to work with, and it's going to limit the available food on the opposing team. At the end of the day, it looks like coRe's raid gets cleaned up, but at least it buys time for Elyona to make it to Castle Age with the Imperial Palace.
Yep, and the Imperial Palace, this is another map, especially with the location it is, and I'm seeing it. It's going to provide so much vision all throughout the center, as well as being, you know, legal map hacks when you use its ability.
That's going to be immensely valuable on an open map like this. You'll always have some openings or villagers are out there, and you can just swing by with your cavalry. It's a lot less valuable on a map that's easily wallable because the villagers will likely be behind walls. Here, well, as I'm saying that, Scatterbrained and Stopper will just say, well, we're going to get the walls up here, and honestly, I don't blame them. If they get those walls up, it's difficult for coRe and Elyona to launch a counterattack, and now you're looking at 20 Horse Archers, 60 Knights. Elyona's army is just not there. 16 Spearmen, that's it. In fact, coRe's army is not there either. He's got 4 Lancers in total.
Yeah, neither of them have a very scary army, but the question is, will Stopper and Scatter do something with their mass? They need to make some connections. Scout here spots out an IO, spots out some villagers, spots out some fishing, and let's see a first little bit of damage here. Fishing boat taken down as well. but still nothing too crazy.
I think it's more about the scaling that I'm looking at here. Once the walls are complete, it's going to be difficult to hit the eco of Stopper and Scatterbrain. They're only down by 8 eco, but their army value is just so much better. It's not just the arcs. What did I say about syncing armies with demos? You got to be extremely careful if you're Scatterbrain and Stopper. Because I was about to say, the army count, the army value is just not there right now for Elyona and coRe. And they need some Hail Marys like a crazy demo to compensate.
That was huge right there. Another Shaolin Monk goes down for coRe. He also loses 4 villagers and all his fishing is to follow it up. So really just kind of taking away that emphasis of the Castle Age play that he had. He's on 42 economy, the lowest in the game, and 3 military. Again, the lowest in the game.
And I love how Stopper and Scatterbrain are using this time. They're active, they're looking for value, but they're not overcommitting just yet because they're waiting for that Castle Age from Stopper to hit. When that happens, he's going to have 20 knights with Royal Bloodlines, which is just absolutely bonkers when you combine that with 30 Horse Archers. In fact, I love this little teamwork. Scatterbrain had a bunch of extra gold. He's not making gold-heavy units. He sent over that gold so Royal Bloodlines can be clicked immediately. And once that comes in, we're looking at a substantially more valuable army. Even the raw numbers favor Scatter School, but it's the value that's so much better for them right now.
I'm not trusting that he clicked it up until we see that it's been clicked, because last time we said this exact thing, had the resources in, and Elyona did not actually have it clicked up, but it is immediately clicked 1 minute and 4 seconds until Royal Bloodlines finishes.
And these walls are late. These walls are late, and that allows the Horse Archers to swing past. There is actually a demo somewhere from Elyona, so you still gotta be cautious with your troops going on these shallow waters. But now I think we're getting to the stage where Stopper and Scatterbrain have to start doing something. If this game drags out and you're facing late-game Chinese and Jushi, that's gonna be ugly. So I think the most powerful window is just now coming up here for Scatter School.
Yeah, 22 knights, and when you think about it, you know, the other knight civ, quote unquote, is coRe was the one who was going with the cav, going with that mobile army. He's got 2, and now he's going horsemen. He's only got 3 horsemen, and so the 25 knights for Stopper should be able to run rampant, especially with only 19 crossbows.
Exactly. There's nothing from coRe and Elyona that can stop this. If they right-click commit, it's enough. And it looks like the Horse Archers might lead the way, trying to pick off some of the spears before the Knights come in. I think Stopper and Scatterbrain might be a little bit overcautious here. I think they're concerned that there is more on the side of coRe and Elyona. But this is, again, you know, that lack of information that we often talk about. We know that they could dive, but they might not be certain about it. Having said that, if they just get line of sight and camp behind that wood line, that could be enough to just harass those wheels. It's like instead they will swing to the south. If they ever find a way through those walls and they get to that far right opening, that's a big problem for coRe and Elyona. Because these narrow choke points in the middle of the map is not something that where you want to fight. This open land is where you want to fight if you're Scatter School.
Yep, and the second TC spot of coRe is starting to be dove. Knights are moving on forward. Horsemen trying to defend this. And the demo! The demo! Oh, doesn't connect as bad as we thought it could be. The Knights still just being that perfect front line, but they're not taking the head-on engagement. They just need to dive on in and actually fight.
They gotta get off the waters. They got away with one. Luckily for them, the second one didn't connect, but this could have been disastrous for Stopper and Scatterbrain. Those are the kinds of Hail Marys that coRe and Elyona need right now. Crazy demo connection to sink the army. They still took a lot of damage on these troops, though.
Yeah, and there's still like 4 outposts, 2 TCs here for coRe. Can easily defend this position and have the Vills jump inside. There's not a lot of spots that are filled in actually though, and the Knights are still just roaming around, killing everything they can. Crossbow mass hasn't been touched though, so a lot of the Knights still falling. And is this damage worth it now? I think they ended up losing quite a bit and didn't gain as much as you'd expect.
I'm a little puzzled about this withdrawal from the Horse Archers. The Knights stayed. when you have 34 horse archers and 15 more in queue, you could have easily just committed. You had a bunch of lumberjacks out there. You actually scouted quite a few villagers on the left side too. I don't mind them regrouping, but I feel like it was... they could have, as you said, gotten a lot more out of this, simply because if they commit the horse archers, the crossbows would just get absolutely eviscerated.
Yeah, and with that many outposts, the horse archers didn't want to end up diving through as far either, or else they start getting shredded. Knights really are that main tank, and this time Scatter says, all right, let's have some siege here to help us in the game. There will be knowledge of this, as I believe the Imperial Palace has sight of everything.
Yeah, it's a matter of, okay, you know what's happening. But at the same time, what are you going to do against it, right? Crossbows are great, but coRe doesn't have a standing army right now. And this is more than concerning for coRe and Elyona. They held this back once, but they're up against 50 horse archers now. Trebs are coming up too. And again, I mean, these lumberjacks, they would just die in an instant the moment those horse archers get line of sight on them. They can just fire over the forest.
coRe's dropped a third TC behind this, so he is ready to reboom. He's ready to just hold this as long as possible. Let those TCs get to work, as they aren't too far behind on eco. If he can get time, he'll be equalized in the blink of an eye.
Yeah, that's going to be a big thing. They do the right thing right now. They're in a tough spot, but they're hoping that their opponents just gonna stall out with this push. And every second is immensely valuable here for coRe and Elyona. They can leverage those extra TCs. Now, Tower, once again, is just not having that line of sight to focus the villagers behind the walls. I think the biggest problem right now for Scatter School is that they're trying to force their way through the middle in these choke points, and this is where their armies are the least effective.
Yeah, there's so much room on these outsides. There's so much area to circle. That being said, you never want to get to a position that all of a sudden you get walled off, you're stuck behind, the wall finishes. And another attempted burn. Mangonel's coming out though. Double Treb's going to try to take down that other outpost. And not only that, Scatter's going to go for the chop through slowly too.
Yeah, they just want vision on those lumberjacks. Keep in mind, demos could be nasty here. Once again, you got to be very cautious not to get caught off guard. But this army, the army value is still just so much better right now for Stopper and Scatterbrained, I feel. That's a lot of spears, though.
Iron over the wood line. Needs to have a good connection onto the crossbows. Horse archers just sitting back. And the demo, nowhere to connect to. It will get sniped out just to make sure that nothing crazy happens here. Nest of Bees helping fire, and oh my, Nest of Bees shot.
That is beautiful. Second volley comes in as well.
Volley.
At least there is no third one, but a lot of the horse archers are damaged now. To the north, Knights are trying to break through the walls, hit a bunch of villagers. Mangonels now coming in with the connections. It's just chaos all over the map once again.
Treb stop firing, they're moving forward now. A third Mangonel helping fire, and the Nest of Bees pops again. Trebs need to focus down that siege workshop if you're Scatter.
Mangonels are slowly cleaning up the crossbows though, and the horse archers are still standing. There is a new Nest of Bees coming in. Knights will try to jump it. Another beautiful volley though. These Nest of Bees are getting so much value.
Oh, and another huge volley, but that should be the last Nest of Bees there as the Trebs firing down on the siege workshop. It's about to get taken down, but look at the health of the horse archers. They're all so low, all at half health or lower, but will coRe and Elyona have enough to hold?
Their armies are now gone, basically. coRe has just 2 horsemen, and that's basically it. And the Trebs are taking out key infrastructure. They are taking out production buildings. Now the Knights are jumping on the villagers as well, and there's a new wave of Knights coming in. We started this fight with about 25 Knights for Stopper. He's still at 26. He replenished every single lost unit, and kind of the same goes for Scatterbrained. He's up to 53 horse archers. That new wave is now coming in, and I just don't see that second wave behind this for coRe and Elyona.
Yeah, coRe's building horsemen, and I feel like that just is so bad going into Knights. I get it. He's trying to like maybe be that tanky front line, get on top of the horse archers, soak some of the damage. But as we see here now, they just get obliterated here. Mangonels!
Now that snowball effect with all these horse archers is starting to show. Even with these crazy Nest of Beast shots, it's just not enough anymore for coRe and Elyona. Nest of Beasts have to be repaired here by Vils, but there is just not enough spearmen left. Now the knights are now reigning supreme, and you're getting to the stage where the horse archers can and will commit against all these Nest of Bees.
And granaries starting to get taken down with the fire, and coRe is taken down, throws in the towel. We will be getting a game number 5.
Wow. Just wow. I was a little puzzled about the Jushi Chinese combo, and I'm not gonna lie, I have not received answers. I don't exactly know what the game plan was here for coRe and Elyona. I wonder if the plan was that they play Chinese or Jushi and English. Maybe they anticipated the snipe on one of the Chinese or Chinese variant civs, and when English got sniped, they were just like stuck with 2 very similar civilizations. But nevertheless, this takes us into game number 5, Coastal Cliffs. And we've seen slip-ups from both of these teams here on these open land maps. I feel like this game, a lot of early aggression, a lot of raiding potential. This is going to come down to whoever plays a cleaner game. Ayyubids and Rus facing off against the Abbasids and the Malians. We're heading into game number 5 here to decide who gets to survive here in Group D and who is the one finished in a Winter Team Championship 2. It is game number 5 on Coastal Cliffs.
It is the true win or go home. Starting now, in the orange, we have coRe playing the Rus. In the red, we have Elyona playing the Ayyubids. On the other side, lemon lime colors again. Scatterbrained in the color yellow playing Abba, and Stopper playing Molly in the color green. And I really feel like Scatter and Stopper have a good civ combo to just play very, very defensive. Go with cows, go with a second TC, and just play their own game, play back and hold the push. Because if they get into a spot where 2 TCs and Abba isn't punished and your cows aren't punished, you will win the game.
Again, I gotta go back to the point I made. I think this is gonna come down to players being clean or not being clean. We've seen this in both of these games before. Players being a little careless, moving out the resources, not having the proper defenses out there, and the other team exploiting it. I think that's going to be a big factor going into this one. And one thing I'm looking at is that most of the tree lines spawn to the front for both of these teams. So you actually have good opportunities to just wall these front parts of the base off and play a little bit more defensive, perhaps.
Yeah, and we can actually see the secondary gold. There actually is 1 gold between the 2 bases now. So it allows Molly to have a potential secondary gold vein that is not as punishable as what we typically will see on this map. And Molly is also picked on this map a lot because it is a very aggressive map, and they can deal with a lot of military mass and also send a lot of military themselves.
Yeah. Looking at the gold mines, the one thing I'm not, I'm neutral about this, but Stopper shouldn't be happy about the fact that his gold mines are all in the front, and same goes for coRe. So, in a way, it's a fair map. Really, the only player with bad golds is going to be Scatterbrained. Elyona does have fairly exposed gold mines as well, but at least he can make a wall in between those tree lines to make it a little bit more well protected.
Yeah, exactly. The question is what age up will Elyona be leaning into here? And then we see the economic wing from Scatter. We see Golden Gate from coRe. That has been what Rus has chosen all day today. That's what Abba always is leaning into. And the culture wing logistics. So able to heal up some units, able to provide a lot of support, able to deal with raids potentially. And also, we know at high elos how likely you are to keep your units alive at lower health. You can pull them back and get them back up to full. But now we're just waiting on these feudal ages to conclude. Then we'll start to get, the games start opening up. Very aggressive map, military buildings starting to be dropped. And, you know, I wouldn't be surprised to see Elyona go for some Desert Raider play, although Javelin throwers play very, very well into some Desert Raiders.
Yeah, I think one thing to look out for is that Ayubits have a really good timings and also late game. But at the same time, we've seen it earlier today, how oppressive Malians can be in late game on this map. If trenches are indeed dug, if we're getting into this static late game with a lot of walls, suddenly the Malian passive resource income becomes immensely valuable for population efficiency reasons. So I wonder if coRe and Elyona will try to play a little bit more aggressive, simply because Malians get so much better as the game goes on. So they're really looking to at least get some damage done early on here on the Malian player. They do have a couple of scouts out to potentially harass these the pit mine and the houses with. They opted to go and try and torch down the pit mine instead of the actual houses. So I don't know if that's going to yield any substantial damage, I guess.
Yeah, we saw this in some of the games earlier. I don't know if it was this set or a previous set, but there was 3 of the houses ended up falling. Meanwhile, Pit Mine's not even down to half health yet. That being said, teammate Elyona didn't come help with his scout until a little bit later on, but Stopper being feudal age should be able to make sure that this doesn't get denied, move out with the villager, you know, put a little taps on it and won't even, you know, let it get on fire, really.
I wonder if this is just all that distraction, though, because Elyona, first of all, has got dervishes going, and more importantly, he's trying to get to Castle here straight away. And as long as this harassment is going on, this is the primary focus for Stopper and Scatterbrained. In fact, they have to pull a villager to repair this. And while this is happening, Elyona is going to have a free ticket going into Castle Age, and with 2 dervishes out there, he can easily secure those relics and get that immediate resource income buff.
Yeah. Logistics are healing up those scouts, making sure that the scout v scout war is going their way, and they don't even have to worry about the units, you know, the one scout barely tapping them. Pro scout play coming in from coRe, so there's a lot of deer in between these 2 bases, and coRe has 4 scouts already, can easily just go deal all the deer that he wants right now with the military mass that Scatter School has out.
They tried to jump this one scout out here that has been trying to slow them down. 2 villagers from Stopper had to be pulled for this. So even if the pit mine doesn't go down, it forces a lot of idle time and lost opportunities for Stopper. It's going to lose a couple of houses here as well. And again, the whole idea is that you are essentially causing a distraction. I don't like this for Scatterbrained. I think this is a difficult civilization matchup, but the problem here is that you are going to play 2 TCs, perhaps 3 TCs. He has been collecting a lot more stone than what he needs. He's playing multiple town centers, but he's going to get beaten into Castle Age by both of the opponents. And that just means that all of the eco advantage he would build up with the extra villagers will be compensated for by the pro scouts taking all the deer and by the relics that will be taken by Elyona.
Yeah, and it is indeed 3 TCs for Scatter. He's building the 2 extra ones right next to each other. He's going to be on the deer, going to be on the wood line, and going to go ahead and build some walls for himself as well. Now we're seeing Elyona circle with the scout. The question is when will they get the information on the TCs? I don't think it'll be too long from now.
This is big for Elyona because they now know about the 3 TC build, and that means that one player is playing extremely greedy, and you can leverage that by being aggressive towards the Malian player. Just say, okay, you have Scatterbrained out there, they're walling themselves off, which is a good move, I feel like. If you're playing this greedy, you gotta wall yourself off. But there is gonna be a window here for coRe and Elyona to do damage. They're both going into Castle Age. What I'm uncertain about is what unit composition Scatterbrained and Stopper will go for. For now, Stopper is on a couple of warrior scouts, and he's just trying to deny that deer being ferried in. In fact, he actually has pro scouts himself, so this actually turns into a race for all those carcasses.
Yeah, we saw coRe steal a couple over from the other side, and it's wouldn't be too shocking to see Stopper go steal a few from his side.
I love the Desert Raider being added, by the way, by Elyona. You have so little army out there that even one Desert Raider is very effective against those couple warrior scouts from Stopper. So that's all you need to push them back, and that's all you need to secure those extra carcasses for coRe as well to ship in. Although with those walls complete in the middle, Stopper and Scatterbrain will secure most of the deer that is on their side.
Yeah, it makes things a little bit easier for their life. And with the double Castle Age play, they don't have to be as worried with the timing. Gives them a few extra seconds if they need it for those walls, and you know, they won't quite get fully burnt on down. We see double barracks reaction from Scatter, knowing they need military. Walls aren't finished fully on the eastern side yet, but the walls in the center have been.
Elyona was so quick bringing in the first 2 relics that he didn't even have a mosque to place them into. So he just had to drop it off inside his base and pick it up later on. You can actually see these relics. They're waiting for that mosque to be completed.
And he rushed down that mosque very, very quick. And it makes sense, though, because this is one of the times I won't complain about someone rushing down a building like that quick. It's because you can get the payoff so fast once you just get another... I guess he's already had 2, but another dervish on out, grab those relic and get the gold flow incoming.
Game is slow, and we get some walls coming up from coRe on the right side. They want to essentially leverage that map control they have. They don't have a lot of units, but they still are given essentially the whole map. They want to leverage that with some forward walls, secure all these sacred sites, secure the relics. The only thing for coRe and Elyona, I feel, is that they need to be cautious about not getting outboomed very badly. 3 TC Abbasids haven't yet come online, but when they do, there will be some scary moments for coRe and Elyona.
Yeah, and you can't forget that Elyona already has gotten that boost of the growth wing, had 8 villagers pop out, so that's why the vill count doesn't look as bad as it could be, is because there's 8 extra villagers on one side, and it's trying to match the 3 TCs. The vill does get scouted out, so coRe actually will end up losing that village. Yeah, we'll end up losing that villager, and archers are scouted out, but there's still a wall here, so can't do anything against that.
All of those golds are on the front for Stopper, though. His starting gold is safe, and he's got a bunch of save golds back on his teammate's side. But if that position constantly gets pressured, that's going to be a problem for Stopper. Spearman now flooding out. That should be an indication for coRe and Elyona that they need to start focusing on Scatterbrain as well. Scatter is getting to the stage where he's getting army rolling. But I guess the silver lining for coRe and Elyona is that as much as they don't have that villager advantage, in fact, they're quite a bit behind, they will have every single relic on this map. Well, except for the one that's right next to Scatterbrain's base. It looks like Elyona is going to have 6 here. He has 2 already, 2 more coming in, and he has 2 more right next to coRe's base.
Yeah, that feels so good, and it really is one where Eubids is more that timing sieve, and this timing is giving them all the relics, and this is where sometimes you'll see the Eubid player drop another, 1-2 TCs, and then that is their way to kind of match in the vill count in the long run, or they can just use this gold and get a lot more aggressive with it, which I would not complain about at all. It really feels like coRe and Elyona need to punish the 3 TCs, and not only that, the cow boom is going to start paying off soon for Stopper. You can see he's at the point where he's starting to make a lot more military, and I can see that little green outline to the left side of his base. He's probably got a good amount of those cows built on up.
And that's where it gets scary. That's where it gets scary for coRe and Elyona, because sure, they have a gazillion relics, which is a lot of passive resource income. Guess what? The other player has a lot of passive resource income as well. The pit mines, the cattle. And at the same time, Scatterbrain has a substantial villager advantage compared to everybody else. He's just going to go to Castle Age as we speak. Stopper is still in feudal, though, but he's about to click as well. So I think the biggest concern for coRe and Elyona is that they will have a tough time punishing this, because they will bump into walls. And when you look at their army, most of those are archers. They only have a handful of torch units that can actually break through these walls.
And the thing I'm really scared for coRe and Elyona is this is a really all-any play. Like, if they don't get this push and don't get a lot of damage, they don't have a real ability to reboom a ton. They have the relics. That's their advantage. They don't have extra TCs. They don't have this cow boom. And really, Stopper and Scatter are the ones that will be in a much better positioning point. So this push has to do some damage. farms were built forward for Scatter, and he needs to be asking his teammate for help. Stopper should be rallying over to his side with those javelins.
Yeah, now this could be scary here for Scatter. If he starts losing villagers, this game is going to be massively in the favor of coRe and Elyona. Idle time is fine, but they need to get something going. The trick is that they are both in feudal. Maybe they stayed a little too long in feudal age because Scatterbrain is still at least a minute away and there is just nowhere for him to go.
Archer splitting off everywhere. Multiple TCs over here. Spears trying to run to cut off the Camel Lancers. They will at least be able to connect well, and TCs need to fire on the archers, but there's still too many villagers here. Not enough spots. Ton of villagers will be falling, but again, all they need to do is hold. All they need to do is equalize these military numbers. Javelins have nothing to protect them. Camel Lancers on the way. Spears out of position.
Yeah, the spears are gone, and that means that there is nothing stopping the Camel Lancers. Now they jump on the gold miners. The spears couldn't do anything over here, and the javelins, they're trying to help. But if you don't have spearmen support to them, the Camel Lancers will reign supreme. The eco damage is starting to get way too big here.
Yeah, Scatter still up 20 vils. Stopper just hits castle. Scatter does as well. Those few camel riders that pop out will be crucial. They are much needed. Archer number already starting to thin. Still a lot of camel riders alive, or camel lancers alive, and the camel riders are just sitting there watching.
Oh boy, Scatterbrain is down to 67 eco. That's not that much ahead compared to Elyona, and he keeps losing villagers. A lot of idle time as well. Villagers had a lot of garrison spots here with the TCs and towers, and it looks like this might just be it. Now the reinforcements arrive. I don't know if coRe and Elyona can stay longer, but I think they did what they needed to. They've basically equaled the villager count out. Let's not forget, they still have 2 sacred sites. They still have all the relics, and now the sacred site countdown is down to 5.5 minutes. It's not just, you know, playing late game anymore for Stopper and Scatterbrain. They have to find a way to decap one of these sacred sites.
Yeah, Stopper is online though as well. If you look at, you know, him versus coRe, Stopper has more vills and has the cow boom. If you're looking at Scatter versus Elyona, Elyona has the favor because of the 6 relics, but still is down a few villagers. So that's where I feel like overall it's a little bit more on even footing than what it may seem to be. That push could have gone a lot worse. And how much of a farm transition does coRe have behind it? He's been on that pro scouts for a while, and it will run out over time, and you can still see how heavy it is on. Oh, that's a lot of deer carcasses, it looks like. Oh my gosh.
Now, the concern for coRe and Elyona is that they don't have longevity. It's 1 TCs each. A moment ago, the villager count was neck and neck. Now it's a 15 lead for Stopper and Scatterbrain. I think, again, as you said, no farms for coRe. 1 TC each, and I don't know how much they can break through these walls now. The army count, oh boy, that's ugly. That's very ugly. Villagers getting stuck on the outside. This is exactly what coRe and Elyona needed. But if coRe and Elyona cannot break through these walls, sacred sites are a legitimate victory condition. They just need to camp those down, and I wonder if they are being aggressive right now just to take the attention away from that sacred site countdown.
Walls on the north are starting to be reinforced into. Yeah. Walls are almost fully finished on the eastern side, the reinforced walls that is. But Scatter and Stopper have more things to worry about. This push is coming back for the base. They have not remassed fast enough. They have not been able to rebuild that army. There's a little bit of gulams here to kind of be more of that front line. Javelin throwers stepping up. Spears stepping up, and they're taking the fight. They have to take the fight. It's in the backside of the base on the gold veins. Camel Lancers still into spears, but not enough spears to clean this up fast enough. coRe just letting the archers attack as fast as possible, and the Camel Lancers circling and splitting off, doing some raiding into the villagers as well, causing idle time. Reinforcements will be harder to make, but will Scatter and Stopper have enough to hold this? The Camel Lancers are reigning supreme.
This was anything but efficient for coRe and Elyona. They took what was supposed to be a very underwhelming fight and won it simply because they had the numbers advantage. And they're fine taking these trades, this mutual annihilation setup, because the sacred site countdown is down to 3 minutes. If no one has an army, Scatterbrain and Stopper cannot take those sacred sites away. They fought into so many spears with these camel lancers. They fought into javelins with the archers. Yet they were willing to take this fight simply because they had the numbers advantage, and they know they didn't need to win these fights. They just need to make sure the opponents don't win them.
Yeah, army has been significantly thinned out. Even just to burn down the walls, it's going to take a significant amount of time. Hard to decap those sites. Will not have much time to do so. As we see top middle, it's ticking down 2 minutes and 20 seconds, and they got more things to worry about than just the timer. There's camel lancers, sorry, still into the base, and they're trying to deal with it, but there's so many split off into different places.
If this was a no sacred side game, I would say it is still manageable for Scatterbrained and Stopper, because these raids are not super efficient for coRe and Elyona. They're killing vills, but again, you're looking at a bunch of passive resource income for the Malians. Scatterbrained still leads the game in terms of villagers. And remember, these are expensive raids for coRe and Elyona. The wars are coming back again. The reason why coRe and Elyona is such a good position is because of that sacred side countdown. Without it, this would be an even-ish game or so. But with that sacred side countdown, coRe and Elyona is in a definitive lead.
And look, they know it too. Elyona doubling up on the walls. coRe making sure the middle is fully walled off as well. I wouldn't be surprised to see him drop another layer. Just stall, stall, stall. It's 1 minute and 15 seconds. It'll take 1 minute and 15 seconds to get through the Rus reinforced walls.
That's exactly it. Now, there are no fortifications here. coRe and Elyona have absolutely no stone, so it's not like you have a keep defending it. It's just one measly wooden fortress and the 1.5 layers of wall. It's 58 seconds. It's do or die for Scatterbrained and Stopper. If they decap the sacred site, their position is great. If they cannot, it's all over for them, not just in this game, but the whole tournament.
Mangonel gonna delay the wooden walls, or even if not, a little bit of some AoE damage can hit on top of those javelin throwers. Camel lancers dive in. They don't care if it's spears, they don't care if it's gulam. Just don't allow them on the sacred site. Keep on delaying. Under 30 seconds left. Mangonel's firing, and Scatter is doing everything they can, Scatter School, but they are losing the fight again and again and again.
It's not enough. And with that sacred site ticking down just 15 seconds away, the hopes of Scatter School of surviving in the Winter Team Championship will fade away. Desperation kicking in, but it's too little too late. 7 seconds left to go. That is what separates coRe and Elyona from getting into the decider round.
I was about to say, even if those vills go to the sacred site, they have a lot of military on the way, and they're about to get wrecked. What a series. coRe and Elyona able to hold strong and move through.
An absolute nail-biter. From start to finish. A tight series, but the individual games were wild as well. A lot of back and forths, a lot of slip-ups on both sides. Sometimes when you felt like a team is winning, something catastrophic happens and it all turns upside down. Now you're looking at this final game, and again, if it wasn't for the sacred sites, this could have been a very different game. Scatter School had a well set up defense back at home. They had multiple TCs, the passive resource income of the Malians. And this is why so many times we highlight that potential victory condition of the sacred sites. It's not a victory condition at 10 minutes. It's not a victory condition at 6 minutes, but once you start getting that 4 3-minute domain, it forces the hand of the opponent, and that was the case here as well. Scatter School just had to go. They had no other option.
Yeah, and I love it from coRe and Elyona too. They didn't just like sit back with their military and be like, all right, let's just wait. We're waiting on the sacred site when it's like, no. We're still going to cause eco damage. We're going to make sure you're on the back foot and you're not even going to get close to moving across the map until it's too late. And that's exactly what happened. Great job by coRe and Elyona in the deciding game at that.